Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories, where today, I won 2 tickets to the Super Bowl. My girlfriend is upset that I'm taking my brother instead of her. A couple of days ago, I won a trivia contest that gave me an all-expense-paid trip for 2 to the Super Bowl. As you can imagine, I was excited, but it's gotten to the point where I wish there was a way I could sell the package and just forget about it. My brother and I were together and decided to try for tickets from this local contest. I was the official contestant, but I actually ended up getting the answer I needed from my brother. From that point, I never even thought about who to take. Since it was something we both did, and he ended up actually giving me the answer, of course he was gonna go. I told my girlfriend that I had won the tickets and I was excited to go with my brother. She then got very upset that I'm not taking her. For the record, she's a football fan, so it's clear she would love to go. But my brother gave me the answer. How could he not go? My brother said he would understand if I take her and sees the problem that this is causing for me, and he offered to give her his ticket. I didn't even tell her that he made the offer because I don't think that's the point. I think she's being selfish and putting a damper on the entire experience. I told her all of this, but she's not backing down and said that if you win a trip for 2, it should automatically go to your significant other. Maybe that's true if it were a romantic getaway or a cruise, but this is something my brother and I did together, and he's the reason I won. I think she's being selfish, and she thinks that I'm being inconsiderate of her. I don't know who's right and what to do. I wish I never won these tickets because no matter what happens, the entire experience has been marred. I thought of giving the tickets to my brother and his wife and just forgetting about the whole thing, but because I won the tickets under my name, it has to be me. How should I handle this? Update. It's been a very few stressful days. I'm just glad that there seems to be a resolution. I had tried talking to my girlfriend and she was still upset. I approached the conversation as many people had said, keeping an understanding that she was more disappointed than controlling and would come around. Unfortunately, she was being unreasonable. She said I could go, but that doing so would hurt her a great deal and that she would need some time to reevaluate things. I should have just ended things with her there, but I was so sick of these tickets by that point that I didn't even have the heart to go, even if I did decide to end things with her. As suggested by some of the comments, I called up the radio station and asked if it was at all possible to transfer the tickets to my brother so he could go with his wife. They were totally understanding and awesome about it and said they were sorry I couldn't go, but they were glad to put the tickets in my brother's name for me. I was just glad to have it behind me at that point. I told my girlfriend what I did and that I was staying here, and she said that I was being dramatic and immature. She said that I transferred the tickets to my brother just so I could win the argument and look like a martyr. It was at this point that I reached my breaking point. I calmly told her that this relationship was over. I wasn't even mad at this point, just confused that a person I thought I knew could act this way. She said she was going to break up with me because of the way I handled this anyway, so breaking up with her didn't matter. My brother immediately told me I dodged a bullet and is glad that she was out of everyone's lives. My brother's wife was totally cool about me using her ticket and didn't even question it after I'm technically taking back my gift from her. They insisted that I go with my brother, and it was their idea. So now, I'm the guest of the original tickets that I won. Happy to say I arrived in San Francisco a few days ago, and I'm having the time of my life. My girlfriend didn't unfollow me on social media, and I'm posting as many pictures as I possibly can. Thanks, everyone. My daughter is pregnant again, and I'm kicking her out. I'm 49 female. My daughter, Josie, who's 19, had her first baby when she was 15. My husband and I were devastated at first because we knew this was going to be a very difficult path for our daughter. We did all we could to give her a proper education, but it wasn't enough, and we couldn't turn back time, so all we could do was support her in what she wanted to do. My husband and I helped Josie take care of our grandson and encouraged her to finish high school. She never did because she said that her priority was being a mother and she didn't have time to invest into finishing high school. We told her she would either go to school or get a job, but we weren't going to give her the option of doing neither for more than a year after she gave birth, so she got a part-time job at a hair salon. The father of my grandson, who was her age, would give her about $100 a month for baby-related stuff and would come over every couple of months to see his son. But that was all he did, even though he lived in the same city as us. A few days ago, Josie broke the news to us that she's pregnant again. The father is the same guy who got her pregnant the first time. My husband and I were ticked. How can she get pregnant by that guy for the second time when he was very obviously not consistent or helpful with the first baby? And with Josie living with us rent-free and us having to take care of my grandson for her so she can work, go out, etc., this does not seem fair at all that she can add another baby into this mess. After a few days of thinking about it and discussing it with my husband, we decided to tell Josie to move in with the father of her kids and raise the kids together. She said they're not in a relationship, so they can't live together, and they wouldn't be able to afford it anyway. I told her she needs to figure something out because we, my husband and I, are not willing to raise another baby for her. She said, "You're never satisfied with anything I do. You told me to get a job, so I did, and now you're complaining that you had to raise the baby. You wouldn't have had to if I didn't have to work. I can't do both things at once, and I definitely can't raise 2 kids on my own and work. What 19-year-old can do that?" I replied, "We tried to teach you how to be responsible after your first baby, and we did all we could to be there for you. You clearly haven't learned a thing, and it's not our job to keep picking up after you. So before your baby arrives, discuss living arrangements with the father and figure something out." She's been crying and not talking to us ever since. She's called both sets of grandparents to speak to my husband and I to change our minds so we can help her raise her babies. My husband's parents think that we're being very harsh and punishing her for something that's already happened, which isn't helpful. They offered to take Josie and our grandson in, but Josie doesn't want to take her kids so far away from their dad. My in-laws are saying we'll regret abandoning our daughter and that we should be showing her a better example of unconditional love. I just don't know what more we could do without sacrificing our own selves. Am I the jerk? Not gonna say you're the jerk, but terrible life situations for your daughter and grandkids can happen through this. She may feel alone and lost and never feel family will be there for her again. I was a teen mom, and I was just too young and naive to understand my parents at that time. They were always there for me, and thank goodness, because I finally matured when I was like 25 and turned my life around. Some people are late bloomers. It's a problem with this generation. They want all the freedoms and rights of an adult, but none of the responsibility. Well, who made this generation? What does that have to do with taking responsibility for one's own life and decisions? Should every generation blame the one before it for their inadequacies? Here's a novel idea. As an individual, take the wheel. Be the master of your own destiny. You're not the jerk, but you're definitely a lacking parent. I don't know a single person who gave birth that young that had good parents. You're the jerk. Here's why. You're being crappy to your kid because of systems and norms that are about 60 years old. You are being given something my parents are denied, seeing your grandkids grow up. You can make the choice to support your kid that you raised or kick her and her kids out. You are crappy people. And this is why I raised my kids in a Christian household. Hate me all you want. My daughters weren't the ones having babies when they were in middle school. Worldly people will always suffer worldly problems. Holier than thou? Sure, call it that if you want. I call it living the lives that we have chosen and that we rightfully deserve. Your daughter is a narcissist. The father of these kids is one too. They can't even afford to live together with no kids. Why would they have a second kid or a first one? Who cares about your daughter at this point? These people are everywhere these days. It's the kids who are getting burnt by all of this. I can't stand people like your daughter and the father of her kids. The more I read these stories, the more anger I have for these people who keep bringing kids into this world like it's some little ego game. This ticks me off. What 19-year-old can raise 2 kids on her own while working? Then why are you having a kid then? Am I the jerk for telling my husband that he works for himself, not for us? My husband and I have known each other for 6 years and have been married for almost 3 years now. We have a 1-year-old and we're expecting another baby. Our marriage has been full of emotional highs. We love each other and let the other know regularly. My husband has a 9-to-5 job, after which he is also a tutor. He had started this back when we were in college and it was never an issue. He always had enough time. Even in the years leading up to the marriage and the first year of our marriage, this was never a big issue. However, in the last year or so, it's become a big issue and it's getting worse. He keeps on adding more classes to his schedule. Until last month, we had a red line that no classes on Sunday. He would devote that entire time to us. But last month, he even added a class on Sunday on the excuse that exams are starting. It started to feel like me and my son weren't a priority to him anymore. Some days he comes home at 11. On other days, he's doing it online, but that's not much better because he still can't give us any time. Last Sunday, I finally spoke out and told him he was neglecting his family. He was offended and told me that he doesn't enjoy having to work so hard, but he's doing it for our family. This is where I told him that no, I think he does enjoy it. It gives him an excuse to not spend time with us, and that he was doing this for himself, not for us. As things currently stand, our collective income is more than enough. There really was no need for him to add more classes on top of his existing ones. He's doing it for himself at this point. He's literally busy Monday through Saturday, and now he's trying to cross the red line we established for Sunday. We've been on bad terms since this fight. He keeps saying he can't believe that I said he works for himself and not for us. Am I the jerk here? Update. Our conversation was a bit of a train wreck. I brought up the fact that our income far exceeds our current and projected expenses, that me and our son were missing him and needed him to spend more time with us, and I made sure to stress that I appreciated all that he did. It just seemed like we were on completely different wavelengths. He said he kept on taking more lessons and students because it wanted us to have a good standard of living, have better vacations, better schools, a second house. I was dumbfounded. I never knew he felt this way. I stressed our current standard of living was great. We make enough money, and that if he thinks that way, there's no end in sight. What if he decided we should also have a third house or something? Right now, I needed him with me. At this point, I kind of lost control and started crying. I didn't mean to. It wasn't something I wanted to do to pressure him or anything. Just the fact that we were at an impasse was wrecking me. I told him I'd been feeling unhappy, that I kept compromising, and he reneged on it. After some more crying and consoling, my husband agreed that Sunday should have remained off limits. He gently asked me to give him a pass for one more Sunday because his students' exams end next week, and he would make Sunday untouchable the following semester onwards. He also promised to try to resize his classes in order to be able to come back home for dinner, even if it's late dinner. He asked for time to do all of this. I've given it to him, and I know he loves us enough to do what he's promised. Thanks for the feedback. Yeah, I doubt it, but good luck. Yeah, it doesn't really seem like he's had a real breakthrough, just promises to try and no real apology. I'm sorry, but that's not good enough. He'll try to be home for a late dinner? When you have a toddler and you're currently expecting? So he'll only be around one day a week realistically, since your toddler will be in bed and you'll have a newborn. Then do you get time for yourself? When do you get help, or from whom during the week when he doesn't get home until late? You are essentially a single parent, even with these concessions. I hope things work out for you. Best of luck. Yeah, he's stringing you along. He'll take a few Sundays off to appease you, and then he's going to start working them again. He has no real intention of stopping. Better to have a dude who hustles and makes bank than to be with a deadbeat. I've had 2 girlfriends in the past complain that I worked too much. Now they are both single moms who chose to have babies with deadbeats. Meanwhile, I'm about to retire at 35. When you complain about your husband's salary being more than what you actually need, you are the problem. Girl, stand up. This man just walks all over you, and now you give him a free pass because he can apparently make late dinners. Man, if you don't find some self-respect and really open your eyes that you are pretty much a single parent with an absent husband, this will just be a continuous cycle. Don't see this resolving since you two aren't even on the same page. He can work all the hours and make all the money he wants, and he can write you a big fat child support check so you can hire the people he fails to provide. You'll probably be happier without an absent spouse. Regular visitation with dad would also mean mom gets an occasional day off. I'm guessing you don't now since he's never even home. Heck, I'd leave for that last bit alone. A day off on which he's forced to parent his kids. My postpartum wife wants to leave our baby to go on a vacation to Europe for a month, and I don't agree with her. My wife, 30 female, and I, 32 male, have been together for 4 years, and we currently have a 16-month-old daughter. We both split work 50-50, and despite this, I acknowledge how it is more physically challenging for her with the postpartum phase and constant, regressive now, natural feeding. I'm also very pro-therapy, so regardless of any evaluations, I encouraged her to attend a few sessions, and she and her therapist both agree that she does not have PPD. I'm letting everyone know this because I really want to be able to find a way to talk sense into her without putting all of it on depression. Anyway, my wife and I have a huge fight over something. She says that she's tired from feeling like a mom and wants to take a vacation for 4 weeks with her friend who's based in Europe. Her reasoning for going for 4 weeks is that she gets to earn it after childbirth and 1.5 years of being a mom. She also says she has her own savings and how she always dreamt of exploring Europe, so this is her chance and she wants her identity back. I disagreed with her and told her that priorities are bound to change and she can't expect to have a single life back. I would happily step up and take on her share of childcare if she wanted to do a weekend trip or a spa day and would fully support that. Apparently, that's not enough for her. I told her if she wants to really do something about her savings, it would be great if we could do something, maybe as a couple or a family together, because I also deserve a break as much as she does. I told her how it's selfish she's choosing to spend her savings entirely on herself when I nearly exhausted all of my personal savings on a large family expense. I told her I can't fathom the idea of a mom wanting to be away from her toddler for nearly a month and almost shamed her for it. May make me a jerk, but my emotions were high and I was angry. And it was making things difficult for me because I realistically would have to exhaust my paid time off and be both mom and dad to our baby. I told her I cannot stay in a relationship with someone who can't compromise with me on this. She started crying and told me she wants to feel like herself again, and I told her she definitely can do something this weekend as well, but her propositions are highly unrealistic. It seems that she does not want to accept things as they are. I suggested maybe she could get therapy and got told I won't accept the unacceptable and how I was condescending her into therapy. Can someone please share what I should say to her? Just to clarify my stance on trips, I fully support it if she wants to take a trip over the weekend with her sisters or friends. Spouses and parents should be able to do that. Personally for me, a good cutoff would be 4 to 5 days. Everyone is entitled to their own preference, and I sure know where my wife and I stood when we got married. I do not think it is appropriate for a married person, and now a parent, to leave the household to be away from your family for more than that time. I thought my wife agreed with me because she held the same views as well. Update. When I made this post, I had already began planning how I would like to approach the situation. I thought I might be crazy or being an awful partner to her by disagreeing with her choice. Thank you to everyone who reassured me that her expectations did sound unrealistic. I set my wife down and told her that I again do not feel comfortable with her being in a different continent for such a long period of time. I feel this would not be good for our daughter and our marriage. I do not make decisions for her, but I would also take steps to ensure that there are going to be consequences if she doesn't take my opinion into consideration. After all, this decision to spend so much money and be away from the household, me stepping up entirely and exhausting my pay time off, needs 2 yeses. If she chooses to go, she may come home to a daughter, but not a welcoming husband. That it will permanently change our relationship, and I might not be interested in continuing a relationship with someone who can so easily abandon her family. And for that wound, she would be the only one responsible. Before anyone scolds me again for being harsh, let me tell you, I tried my best to be empathetic to her situation and offered compromises, but she just wouldn't listen, even rejected therapy many times. At this point, she was growing very anxious to the point she started crying. I calmed her down and told her that we need to fix whatever issues we have, and it is glaringly obvious she needs a break too. For that, first, she would have to agree to travel domestically and compromise on traveling for no more than 12 to 14 days, with the condition that I get to have a similar break too at a later time, and I won't use my own funds. I hadn't mentioned what purchases I made with my savings in my original post, but it was a van for our family. Lastly, she needs to get into therapy for a more comprehensive evaluation for PPD, because I do not feel comfortable with her mental state right now, whatever it may be. She wasn't just fantasizing about the Europe trip, but had actually began drawing up plans that time. I let her know that this has dented my trust in her as a parent and a partner, and she would need to introspect and make improvements accordingly. If I still feel weird about this, we may need couples counseling too to reestablish the trust. After all, asking me to sacrifice my paid time off, step up for a month, and have funds that family has the first right over was a big ask. I still don't feel comfortable with how easily she was willing to give up on her duties, and I need time to process things myself. Yeah, OP's wife was one step away from going into crazy banana pants mode. Leaving your baby behind for a month? She's either going to break down crying and fly back home in 3 days, or she's never coming back. There's no other outcome. So, it's obviously a cry for help from the wife, and she's obviously been stewing on it for a long time, and it's hitting her limit. But I need to point out that parents, moms, and dads have to leave their kids all the time for work for extended amounts of time, and it's not the end of the world. Am I the jerk for suing to stop my child support and to get it back? I didn't know my son was not actually mine until he was about 5 years old and had a medical issue. The results of tests made me suspicious, so I had a DNA test done, which was when I found out he wasn't mine. I divorced my ex, but because we were married when he was born, and the time I had to challenge the paternity test had passed, I was on the hook for child support. I was a broken man afterwards and withdrew from all of my friends and family. After a couple of years, I started meeting people again and eventually found out the ex was in a relationship with the affair partner and living with him. This broke me again, so I went back to my isolation. Another year passed and I slowly came back out. It took some time before I could talk about my past, but when I was able to, my brothers lit a fire under me. I found out through friends that the ex moved in with the father of the boy almost immediately after our divorce was finalized and that they've been together ever since. My brothers pushed me to talk to their attorney friend, which I eventually did. He's a business attorney, but listened to my history, then gave me his opinion. He then recommended me to his friend in a family law firm. In short, I paid almost 4 years of child support, and according to my attorney, I have a good chance of stopping the child support payments and recovering at least some or possibly almost all of it, because there is social media evidence that the boy was living with his biological father during that time. The attorney said that we can nail down the exact date they lived together during discovery, then we'll have a better picture of how much we can ask for. After talking with my family, I decided to file a lawsuit to stop and recover my child support payments. I got immediate flack from my friends, ex, and her family. I don't care what the ex and her family have to say, but my friends who I've known since childhood, they know my ex through me, are saying that they support me in stopping the payments, but I'm going too far in trying to get back almost $50,000. They said it was spent on the boy, and I should view it as a donation to a good cause. I know I'm angry and bitter, but am I wrong? Not the jerk. He's not your biological kid, and therefore not your responsibility. What your ex did to you was callous and indefensible. I'm actually shocked your friends can't see that you deserve to get your money back, because you got completely taken advantage of. Moving forward, you need to block out what they're saying and surround yourself with a good support system as you go through the process of getting your money back. Your ex messed up and has to live with the consequences of her actions. In this case, it means paying back money that she had no right to. My boyfriend of 2 years told me he would always want a paternity test because, as a man, you can never know. My boyfriend and I were making dinner and chatting about our days, and I told him about some drama in my life and how one of my coworkers is questioning the paternity of his adult daughter. That's when my boyfriend told me that no matter the scenario, he would always want a paternity test for any kids he has. He said we could be locked away in an isolated cabin for the entirety of a pregnancy and he would still want a test just to be sure. He said that he would do all the legwork of scheduling the test, showing up to it, and paying for it. His reasoning for wanting this is that as a man, you can never truly 100% know if a kid is yours without the test, so he would want one just in case. He also mentioned hearing too many horror stories about men raising kids that weren't theirs. He wanted to let me know all of this now, before we were thinking about having kids, because asking for one after I was pregnant or while we were trying would be offensive. In the moment, I felt kind of disgusted at the request, but thought bringing it up now was a lot better than bringing it up later. I also am a woman, so I will know 100% that any kids I have will be mine. Therefore, I hid my disgust and told him that it would be fine. But the more I thought about it, the more I hated it. Asking for a paternity test in pretty much any scenario is an accusation of cheating. It's saying you don't trust your partner enough to not cheat, and you don't trust your partner enough not to trick you into raising a kid that's not yours. Bringing it up before thinking about having kids is better than bringing it up afterwards, but still seems like a red flag. Try as I might, I can't stop myself from feeling hurt by this. I have no intention of ever cheating on my boyfriend, so I can only really see it as an inability to trust. So now I'm here asking for perspective. Is this a reasonable request from him? Is the perspective of this situation from a man's view something I just can't see? Any thoughts would be appreciated. He's trash, and you need to leave him. This man is openly telling you that he will never trust you. Full stop. Any man who doesn't trust you is not worth being with. Oh, but my horror stories. Here's an idea. Maybe stop listening to Joe Rogan and that other bald guy who are trying to convince you that you're some sort of a victim on their stupid podcasts. I have an open relationship with my hubby, so even if our kids weren't biologically his, he wouldn't have a problem with it. But that's because he's secure with who he is and doesn't try to control me with outdated beliefs. But as for this insecure man-child that you're with, he really deserves to be an ex, and I hope you leave him. Am I the jerk for telling my in-laws that if they want a grandchild that bad, they should give my wife her inheritance now? Basically, my in-laws want their only child, my wife Diana, to start pumping out grandkids. Diana is 28 and just finishing her PhD. Then she wants to get established in a career before we start a family. My in-laws know how much money I make, and they know we could live comfortably off my earnings. That isn't what Diana wants. She's worked her tail off to get to where she is, and she wants to reap the rewards of her hard work. She also says that once she's working, then I can cut back on my hours as a welder and relax a little. I've been working since I was 15, so literally half my life. I make a very good living in return for a lot of fairly hard hours. I've supported Diana in her education. She will graduate without student loans. We have a house. She has a good car. We have a good life. We want a few more years alone before we start our family. Over Christmas, the in-laws just wouldn't drop it. I finally snapped. I said that if they wanted grandkids, then they could reimburse us for her education. They could further pay her the salary that she would be giving up. When she returned to work, they could pay her the difference between what she could be earning and her entry-level position. They could pay for a nanny so my wife could work. Or they could back off and wait for us to be ready. They said that they really couldn't afford all of that. I asked them how they expected us to afford it. I said that if it was really what they wanted, they could just give her the inheritance that would be coming her way now instead of later. They got all offended and said that it's not hers until they don't need it anymore. Diana asked me to drop it. She's tried dozens of times to explain to her parents why we're waiting. They just ignore her. They ignore what we want for our lives. They have been very cold since Christmas. They seem to think I was a rude jerk for pointing out the costs of what they're asking for. A lot of her family agree with them that I went too far in asking them to pay if they want a grandkid now instead of later. Not the jerk. They have to be reminded in very strong terms that it's literally none of their business. They have absolutely no say whatsoever in when you both choose to have kids. Stop being nice about it. They need to be put in their proper place. If they want a new baby around, their option is to adopt. That's where they have a say. Otherwise, they need to shut up and back off. Not the jerk. Been there. Husband was studying for his PhD and we kept getting that question. Eventually I snapped and pointed out that the only person with a permanent job was me and we would be waiting until he had one too. Pretty sure it didn't help my relationship with my in-laws, but that was their problem. Karen demands I cover my tattoo. I, 19 female, recently got a tattoo on the back of my upper arm, around 6 centimeters in length. For context, I live with my parents and I go to university full-time. I also work around 25 hours every week. I don't pay rent, but I do use my own money for essentially everything else. To add, this is very normal where I'm from. I know a lot of people on this sub are from states where there's a strong push for being out of the house by the time you're 18, but that's practically unheard of here, unless you have rich parents who can support you to do so. You cannot attend uni, and rent in my city, it's so unaffordable. Basically, I knew my parents didn't like tattoos, but I really wanted one and thought they'd be a little upset but get over it after a few days. My dad did just that, told me he hates it, then moved on straight away. My mom, on the other hand, reacted horribly. She didn't speak to me at all for 2 weeks, like refused to look at me if I tried talking to her. And now it's been about a month. She's speaking, but does not want me to be around anyone she knows without covering my arm. When people come over to the house, I have to cover my arm. When I go out to local shopping centers where I might run into people she knows, at a wedding I'm going to soon, etc. She's saying all this because she's terrified of people gossiping about her. Every time I bring it up, she says things like, "I don't want to hear it from everyone. They're all going to talk about it." This is probably partially true. Definitely not to the extent she thinks it's going to be. Literally, no one cares that much about me. But I do come from a super judgmental family who will definitely think it's stupid and make comments about it to me. My mom, for some reason, thinks she'll be like a bad parent or something. Not sure, but she clearly thinks it's on her for some reason. Now, I'm not totally opposed to covering it up. However, it's the middle of the summer right now, and like 36 Celsius almost every day, so it's super impractical. The biggest thing, though, is more about how terrible it makes me feel. I know it's like irrational or whatever, but having to cover it up makes me feel like I'm this disgusting person who shouldn't be around people, and I hate it. This tattoo is a part of me, and it's crappy that this part of me is so terrible I can't even let people see it. The people she's trying to impress, all of my extended family, are not particularly great people, and I don't respect or care about what they think of me. so I don't care if they talk smack about me. I've always kind of stuck to my guns here, and I told her that I'm not doing that, and she's gotta accept me for it. However, every single conversation we're having now is just a never-ending argument. I don't know, I don't feel like I'm the jerk, but the way that she keeps saying stuff like, "That's the rule when you live with me," although she still would want me to cover it up around her family if I did move out. Any external opinion could help. Everyone sucks here. You're an adult and your mom shouldn't be trying to dictate your choices anymore. But you knew your parents would hate the tattoo and you chose to get it anyway, knowing that you had to live at home for at least a few more years. So you made your choice. The price of peace in your home is wearing sleeve lengths that cover the tattoo. Only you can decide if you want to keep fighting this battle. As someone who lives in a country with a housing crisis, forget this noise. Unfortunately for everyone involved, people can't move out fully and start adulting until they're at least 22 and out of university. Parents who provide housing for their adult kids need to recognize that they are adults now. OP should not have to wait to make basic decisions about herself. These types of living situations work with mutual respect. You're a family unit, but you are also an adult. Her tattoo does not affect her parents in any way, nor is it a sustained lifestyle choice. She's totally not the jerk for getting a tattoo. Her father is reasonable. Her mother is ridiculous for expecting long sleeves in the summer. In general, your living situation doesn't change your choices. It's a tattoo, bro. She could have just waited and kept the peace and enjoyed her rent-free life. The exact same thing can be said about her mom. It's just a tattoo. Not the jerk. Your parents want you to live there. They don't charge you rent to incentivize you to stay. That doesn't give them a say in your choices. To use your funds to try and control another person is a crappy thing to do. Make it clear to your parents that you can move out if they are so uncomfortable. If you want to compromise yourself for money, you can do that too. I personally would not be able to hold any love in my heart for someone who wanted to have me compromise myself for money though. I'd get out. Yup, you're the jerk. You want to live by your own rules? Then go live on your own. By your own admission, you're only able to survive based on living off your parents, but refuse to live by their rules. Higher education is nice, but not mandatory. The arrogance is just uncanny. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her mom? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for refusing to sit at the kids' table at my brother-in-law's wedding? I'm 28 female. My husband, who's 30, and I were invited to my husband's brother's wedding in the new year. For some context, we do not live in the same country as his family. We live in the US and they live in the UK, and we're trying to save for a house, so we really weren't planning on going on a holiday this year. Wedding is in July of 2024. Truth be told, I'm rather excited for this trip. I love his family and the UK, but my husband is stressed as it's going to cost us a lot of money, upwards of $5,000, including flights, hotel at the wedding venue, trains, etc. Also, for some more important backstory info, my husband's family hate each other. I mean, a nasty divorce that led to parents not speaking to each other for years. Most of the siblings, including brother-in-law, sided with the mom in the divorce. However, my husband has made it a point to not choose and is very close to both of his parents still. Both parents have new families with kids. Now, 3 months ago, my husband's mother told us that we would be sitting at the table with all the other siblings. Most siblings are under 15 years old, the youngest is 8. My husband asked if we could potentially sit with his dad's side of the family, or his grandparents, who we are also very close to. However, his mother told him that we are the only neutral family members, so therefore we need to sit with the siblings as this is their first time meeting. The wedding party is worried about potential family drama arising. My husband and I were fine with this as long as we are sitting together. However, a few days ago, my brother-in-law asked my husband to be a groomsman, to which he accepted. I was thrilled for my husband as he isn't super close to his brothers. I asked where I will be sitting now that he would be at the wedding party's table. My husband just shrugged and said they likely won't move tables around that much. I asked the bride, who said I was still set with the siblings. I asked politely if I could be moved to the table with the grandparents. Again, I'm extremely close to them. The bride politely told me that I'm the only neutral party who has met all of the siblings, so I could manage the questions and potential arguments arising. Again, this is the first time that they're all meeting. I told her that I appreciate this is something that worries her, but I'm not spending thousands of dollars to be a babysitter. She said she understood, but the seating is final. We argued a little more, but she ended the argument by saying I should be happy to be sitting with the kids, because I work with kids and I should be flattered the family trusts me enough with this responsibility. I began to argue, but the bride snapped that if I couldn't stand kids this much, I shouldn't have become a teacher. Please don't get me wrong, I love his siblings, but they are all at least 15 years younger than I am. I also love kids, I'm a teacher, but I want to relax and have a good time at the wedding. I also forgot to mention there will be cousins and kids from the bride's family at the table as well. I just made up my mind. I will not be sitting at the kids' table. I'm going to wander the reception, drink, and have a good time. I'll be pulling up a chair with the grandparents. I do not think it's a big ask for me to be moved to a table, but maybe I'm wrong. My mom and husband still think I'm overreacting, and I should just sit with the kids. But my coworkers and friends think I should not be forced to babysit and/or manage potential family fights. So, am I the jerk? To clarify a few things, unfortunately, we bought the plane tickets already and they are not refundable, or a refund would have been my first choice. They never formally labeled this table as the kids' table, they refer to it as the siblings' table. My husband has 3 younger full brothers and they are adults. None of them are sitting at the siblings' table. This table is completely made up of half-siblings that are 15 and under. I'm the only one who is calling a spade a spade. I showed my husband this thread, who agreed with all of you that I am being treated unfairly. I do want to add, my husband did tell his brother that if I was sitting at the siblings' table, he could not be a groomsman already. I told him not to worry about this after my argument with the bride. It's clear they want me there regardless, and that's my frustration. My husband and I are having a conversation with them later today. I'll update you. Update. My husband and I Zoomed with the bride and the groom yesterday to address our concerns. For those who told me to just sit at the table because they are likely stressed with the wedding planning, I helped plan my sister's wedding, so I know moving one seat is not a big deal. And I only asked because my husband wasn't sitting with me anymore. The bride just said that she confirmed with the rest of the family that the siblings will all be under my care during the reception. I asked if it would just be my husband's siblings, to which my brother-in-law said, "We don't know yet. There are other family members coming and cousins who might want to sit with their cousins." I would then say, "So this is the kids' table." And my brother-in-law would say, "That's not important." I finally asked, "Are you going to blame me if any family drama comes up?" My brother-in-law just said, "That's why you're there, to prevent family drama." So you were all right about that. And this is where things got interesting. For those who said we were being punished, bingo. The bride adds my mother-in-law into the chat. She tells me to stop being selfish and that if I had a problem with being at the siblings' table, it's clear I have a problem being in the family. She also said if I'm not willing to mediate potential family-related questions and problems that might arise, I clearly do not care about my brother-in-law and his bride, and that I want to create problems on their big day. My husband was shocked and asked what makes her say that. My mother-in-law then says that it's clear I've been manipulating my husband away from her family. She accused me of siding with his father in the divorce, and that ever since my husband met me, we'd been spending more time with his father's side of the family. I want to mention that their divorce happened almost 20 years ago, and we rarely talked to his father. Her only evidence to this accusation was that I'm not willing to openly side with her. I was completely shocked by these accusations. My husband said that these accusations are rude and inappropriate and demanded my mother-in-law apologize or he will be cutting her off like John did. Mother-in-law started crying. The bride chimed in that we never included them in our wedding, we eloped, and that this was my opportunity to prove myself as a dedicated member of the family. Obviously, this blindsided me as I genuinely had no idea they felt this way. I always go above and beyond for Christmas and birthday gifts. When we visit, I ensure that I dote on their kids, and I always take the ladies of the family out for a ladies' brunch. I can understand our wedding situation is upsetting, but if my mother-in-law had voiced this to us 4 years ago, we would have hosted a small ceremony or family celebration. My mother-in-law adds that since I wasn't willing to deal with the family drama at our wedding, I should be willing to deal with it from my brother-in-law. I just sat there, jaw on the floor. My mother-in-law snapped, saying she knew the type of person I was from the second I excluded her from her son's wedding, and I'm a selfish manipulator who wanted to steal her son from her and destroy her family, and that my husband is enabling me by not insisting I put the family's needs before my own enjoyment and babysit the kids during the other son's big day. She was hoping my meltdown would show my son what kind of a person I was. Needless to say, we ended up fighting for a few more minutes before my husband slammed the computer screen down. My husband and I chatted for a moment. He apologized for his family and reassured me he knows none of those things his mother said were true. We turned our phones off and had a date night. John, male 32, my husband's older brother, got in contact with us through Instagram this morning. His wife gave me a call and we talked for hours about what happened. Apparently, the reason they left the family was because my mother-in-law did something similar to John's wife. We'll call her Sandy. Sandy didn't want a big wedding due to drama on her family's side and decided to have a small ceremony with their friends. She invited my mother-in-law, who refused to attend because my father-in-law would be there. Mother-in-law threatened Sandy she would make sure John left her if Sandy didn't exclude John's father from the wedding. Sandy didn't listen and went through with their wedding as planned. Mother-in-law accused Sandy of cheating and baby-trapping John. Sandy was pregnant at the time. My mother-in-law stalked Sandy and took photos of her out with her friends and with her brother, sending them to John as proof of her infidelity. Mother-in-law posted these photos to Facebook, captioning it, "Caught you, cheater." Relatives began harassing both John and Sandy. John and Sandy moved away and blocked everyone and have not been in contact with mother-in-law's side of the family ever since. I don't remember this at all, as I had only been with my husband for a year and he didn't want me involved with his family drama. Obviously, I feel awful that this happened to John and Sandy, but they assured me that they forgive both me and my husband. Long story short, Sandy and John are still in contact with the father, how they found out about our situation. John and my husband had a long phone call this morning to which my husband apologized for enabling his mother. My husband has gone no contact with his mother and brothers for now, and we're going to use our trip to visit my old friends from uni and visit John and Sandy. I'm really excited to meet them. These stories about all of these dramatic, toxic families, they make me so thankful for my family that none of us are like that. Yeah, no wonder so many of these people go no contact with their families. My boyfriend finally bought a gorgeous bouquet of red roses, but it was for another woman. Completely shattered and heartbroken as I'm typing this. Yesterday, I, 28 female, found out in the most cruel way that my longtime boyfriend, 28, of 6 years, has been unfaithful. For the past couple of months, he's been really distant and spending more time than usual at work. I chalked it up to stress since he had started a new job recently. However, I was starting to get suspicious when all of a sudden he started following this gorgeous woman on Instagram who also returned his follow. I curiously asked him who she was, and he replied saying she was just an old school friend, which didn't make a lot of sense since her bio said she was 24 years old, which doesn't place them in the same school year. I just had this nagging feeling that something was off, so I decided to check out her social media. On her Facebook, she had set her status to single and would repost photos of women holding huge red rose bouquets, saying how every girl deserves roses and how much she loves receiving flowers. I had a bad feeling about her and developed an obsession with checking her social media accounts daily. I kept doing that until all of my worst fears were brutally fulfilled yesterday. As I checked her Facebook, I came across what I thought was just another one of her flower posts. That was until I took a closer look at the photo. It was a photo of a man's hand which was holding a bouquet of red roses for her as she caressed the flowers. The man's hand had the exact same Apple Watch that I had bought my boyfriend and that he wears daily, and a mole on the exact place where he has one. I could also tell it was him as he has naturally hairy hands. The woman's status was also changed from single to in a relationship. Finding out that my boyfriend was not only cheating on me, but also bought a bouquet of flowers for another woman when he never did for me completely shattered me. I haven't confronted him yet, but I've been avoiding him. It's not that hard since he barely pays me any attention these days. I know that there is no coming back from this, and this will be the end of what I thought was a lifetime relationship. I feel a lot of grief and heartbreak, but I also feel a lot of rage. How do I even overcome this? I just can't get his betrayal out of my mind. The best way is to move on. Break up with him however you see fit. Cut ties, block him. Cry, talk to your friends, pick up new hobbies, cry some more. But get him completely out of your life, first and permanently. Would I be the jerk for suing my friend after she wrote a book about me? I, 29 female, have a friend called Maya. Maya and I have been friends for 9 years after meeting in university. Maya went through a lot of mental health issues in her early to mid-20s, which impacted her career prospects. But a couple of years ago, she found an outlet in writing and now writes and publishes her stories online. They're some of the spicy romance variety. I've never read any of them because they're just not my thing, but I know she has a lot of regular readers. Recently, Maya shared that she had been contacted by a small publishing company which publishes ebooks who were interested in publishing one of the stories that she had been sharing online. I was ecstatic for her, as it's a move towards making her writing a profession, which is what she really wants to do. About 3 weeks ago, a mutual friend of ours, Amy, contacted me and asked if I had read any of Maya's current story, as she had looked it up online and she thought it had some eerie similarities to my life. I looked it up and I read a big chunk of it, and it was more than just similarities. It was basically a melodramatic reimagining of my life, specifically about my relationship with my fiance and my complicated relationship with my father. I don't know how relevant this is, but she also altered their characters and certain situations to make the plot pretty toxic. I was devastated and disgusted to say the least. I met up with Maya and asked how she could do this to me. Her explanation was that she was so inspired by my life and the things I had told her that the ideas just came to her. I kept saying they weren't her ideas, they were sensationalized details of my real life. She didn't have a single original thought in the whole story. Maya apologized profusely for hurting me and said that she was embarrassed by how much she had taken from my life, but she really loved writing the book. I told her I wasn't comfortable having my private life aired like that. Maya said nothing in the book was identifiable to me, so it wasn't like she had done anything illegal. And I said, well, we'll see about that. I've contacted lawyers, and they've said suing her would be largely pointless in terms of stopping the book from being published, but starting legal proceedings might scare a small publishing company enough to drop her as an author. I'm seriously considering doing this. Worst case, I can't do anything to stop the book going ahead, but I've caused her an iota of the stress and hurt she's caused me. Best case, this creepy project never sees the light of day. A couple of my friends are saying I shouldn't sue her, but at the end of the day, this is her work and an opportunity for her to make a career for herself and take care of her kid after all that she's been through. I know this could ruin things for her, and I might be acting out of anger, but I really think it's justified after she betrayed my trust like this. Would I be the jerk to go ahead and sue her? Update. For everyone talking about the Streisand effect, I'm not in the US. Court and legal records here are not something you can Google or access easily. That being said, I realize Maya could publicize a lawsuit herself to get publicity, and that ultimately I'm more concerned about anonymity and it's not worth the risk. I will not be proceeding with the lawsuit. Some people suggested reaching out to the publisher privately, and I'm going to look into that. But either way, I won't drag it out into a court process. You would be the jerk, but not for the reason you think. You seem so revenge-focused that you're not thinking about additional long-term damage that you may recklessly cause to yourself. The lawyers are correct that you don't really have a case, but the threat of legal action could dissuade a small publisher from going forward. This is, however, a double-edged sword, since the author and publisher can use legal action as free publicity. Also, keep in mind that filing a lawsuit is a matter of public record. A lawsuit can forever attach this book to you, since Googling you will probably result in finding out that there's a trashy novel that you say is based on your life story. Am I the jerk for making it very clear to my dad that I'm not asking my mom to spend money on his household? My parents divorced when I, 17 male, was 2. Things are not that friendly between them. I'm not sure of the why, just that they prefer to stay apart, and I've always been okay with that. It's my normal, and I never expected them to act all friendly with each other. My dad is remarried, and he has a big blended family at his house. His wife brought 3 kids into the marriage, Dad brought me. They had 3 more kids together. They took in his wife's 2 nieces as well. I'm not really close to my dad, so I'm not really close to any of his other kids. I only spend 1 weekend a month with him now, which was my choice, and the court supported when I was 14. One thing that probably doesn't need to be explained in a lot of detail, but I will mention, is they don't really have a lot, my dad's household. Neither he or his wife have great jobs, no child support is paid, and things are always tight there. When I was younger and was there every other week, it was pretty crappy. Everyone is crammed into the 3 bedrooms they have. Meals were always kinda crappy and not exactly filling most of the time. Christmas and birthdays were very modest as well. My mom never remarried and focused on providing for stability. I never went without with her, and she always did her best to provide me with nice things, both things that I needed and stuff I wanted. My quality of life was better with her, and I was happier with her. It helped that my mom showed me that she cared and that I was a priority. I never really felt that way about my dad, but especially when he remarried and his finances took a bigger hit. It always felt like he was bitter and resentful that I was so much better provided for at my mom's. The other kids at Dad's house were aware that I had it much better with my mom. They resented me for it. Some of them hate me and think I should have been forced to not see my mom so we'd all have the same. This year, Dad told me that I should have more of an understanding and compassion for all of my siblings, and I should talk to my mom about helping me pay for gifts for them. He said I might not be able to afford much, but Mom should be making sure the other kids get something nice from me and showing me how to be a good older brother to all of them. He also mentioned household gifts to make life a little easier. He told me to ask. I made it clear to him that I will not be asking my mom to spend money on his household. Dad's response was that I'm totally old enough to put more care into my family and want to see them all have a better Christmas. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. He has no right to ask that of you. No matter your age, you'll always be his kid, not his provider. This is just horrible, and it might be time to put a little more distance between you. You're getting old enough where you can visit for the day with your dad, then head home. The tension is going to get worse with everyone. You don't need that. This is not your fault, not your problem to solve. Your only job is a relationship with your dad until he makes that impossible. Good luck. Am I the jerk for not wanting to support someone else's kid? My ex, 28 female, had a kid before we were together. There was never an issue when we started dating, and when I got serious, she asked to move into my house with her kid, and I was happy about it. Throughout the relationship, I treated the kid as I would my own. I paid for everything: sports club, insurance, tutoring, etc. She receives $389 a month in child support from the father, and he sees the kid maybe once a month. Fast forward 2 years, we have our own kid, and we're one big happy family. We'd been talking about getting married, and when we did, I would adopt her first kid, which the dad was okay with. I proposed to her, and 2 months later saw that she had been cheating on me. I was crushed and asked her to move out of my house. After she moved out, I offered to give her $1,600 a month for my kid, and she also got a part-time job making minimum wage. She says I should give the same amount for the other kid as well because I was going to adopt them when we got married. I said no. She took me to child support, hoping to get more money, but she's only getting $700 now for my kid. I've only been giving her the $700 for the last 3 months. She's spreading rumors about me and trying to ruin my reputation. She also is trying to guilt trip me, saying the kid's life has been turned upside down because of me. Am I the jerk for not wanting to support someone else's kid in this situation? Not the jerk. Had you actually adopted the kid, then legally speaking, yes, you would need to provide child support. As it stands, just because you previously paid for things does not mean that you're legally obligated to pay child support. It sounds like that kid's father is still around, unless he already signed away his parental rights because you were planning to adopt him. Either way though, you have no legal obligation to her first kid as he's not yours. The kid's life has been turned upside down because of her, not you. Not the jerk. I'm sorry for the kid, but none of this is your fault or your obligation. Maybe something nice you could do for your own kid is put the $900 you save each month on child support into a college fund. Obviously, you're not obligated to pay for someone else's kid. However, let me offer another perspective. I'm a stepdad. I separated from my partner for about 6 months a few years ago, and it was really hard on her daughter. We made an agreement that even though I wasn't paying child support or anything, the biological dad paid child support, but was 100% absent, I would still be in her life. She came to stay with me every second weekend, and we would talk on the phone between visits. Also, any big events, birthdays, Christmas, etc., we would rearrange the schedule so I could see more of her. Now, in my case, we managed to patch things up, but even if we hadn't, I wanted to remain part of her life. I had been effectively living as her dad for years at that point and didn't want to just abandon her. Now, you don't have to feel the way that I felt, but don't let the mother get in the way of your relationship with the kid. If you've been their dad for the last 2 years, you're allowed to love them as your own. You're allowed to be a part of their life. They're probably devastated at what happened, and it's not their fault at all. This doesn't mean you have to send money, but you could spend time with them, or have them stay with you, or whatever arrangement you and your ex can come up to. You don't have to do any of that, but you can, and it would definitely help the kids who are probably going through a lot at the moment. Dude, shut up. Karen X turned my house from a 4-bedroom into a 3-bedroom, so I'm suing her. My ex and I divorced about 15 years ago, and we have shared custody of our daughter. In the divorce, she wanted our house, but I fought hard against it because it's been my family home for 3 generations before I inherited it. In the end, we came to a compromise that was signed off by the judge. Basically, she gets to live in the house rent-free until our daughter turns 18. Then I get it back. I had to pay the utilities, maintenance, and property taxes the entire time. In addition, she can't make any modifications or upgrades to the house without my written permission. She's solely responsible for the cost, and the work has to be performed by an insured and legally licensed professional. I've been sending her move-out notices for months in anticipation of my daughter's 18th birthday, and recently that came to pass. The day after, I showed up to the house with a contractor because I wanted some work done before I moved back in. At first, she refused to let me in until I reminded her that I'm the legal owner of the house. According to our divorce agreement signed by the judge, she's no longer allowed to be there, and I'll call the police if she doesn't let me in. She got the point and opened the door. I was surprised nothing was packed, and it didn't seem like she was moving at all. We were arguing as I walked through and inspected my house. She wanted extra time, and I told her to be out by the end of the week or I'll have her stuff thrown out. When I walked into the living room, I was shocked into silence. The living room was expanded by a wall being torn down and having the bedroom that was once there merged into it. She turned my 4-bedroom house into a 3-bedroom one. I know I didn't sign off on this, and from the looks of it, the work was probably done by her boyfriend and not a professional. I yelled at her and told her I'm going to sue her for everything she has, then I left. She went crying to our daughter and my family, and now everyone is telling me to give her another month to find a place and to not sue her. My daughter is firmly on her mother's side and thinks I'm the jerk for kicking her mother out a couple of weeks before Christmas and suing her. This is why I'm here. I think I'm right, and legally I am right, but my daughter's opinion of me matters to me. Am I the jerk? Edit to answer some questions. 1. My daughter is a freshman in college, and I rent her an apartment near campus where she lives by herself. She has a room in my house, and I assume she will have a room wherever her mother lives. 2. My ex fought for the house and had a chance of winning, even though we had shared custody because I make much more than her. I offered her the compromise, and she took it because her attorney told her it was a good deal and there's an equal chance I could win, which would leave her without a house. 3. My relationship with my daughter is good. She didn't tell me about the renovation because early on I told her I don't want to talk or hear anything about her mother unless it's something that's affecting her, my daughter, negatively. My ex was done to me, and I wanted to spend time with my daughter building new memories. Edit to answer more questions. My daughter is a wonderful girl, and I couldn't ask for a better daughter. She has a big heart and cares about her mother. I've made it a point to never talk about her mother since the divorce, so I'm sure she doesn't fully understand our situation. I plan to talk to her. 2. I inherited the house during our marriage, and since we were still in the honeymoon phase, I placed her name on the deed. After that, I remortgaged the house twice, once to get a better rate and once for money we needed. All of this led to my attorney advising that I compromise. He said there's a real risk of losing the house, so I compromised. I don't know where you live and the worth of your house, but where I live, there's a huge price difference between a 3-bedroom house and a 4-bedroom one. Your ex's actions caused you to lose tens, if not $100,000. Not the jerk, and sue her. She's had 15 years to find an alternative accommodation. You even sent her reminders. And she violated the agreement by having unauthorized work done? Yeah, just no. Kick her out. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. Christmas is a day. She intentionally messed up the value of your house without your permission, against the judge's orders. Sue her. Well, what do you think? Should OP sue his ex or not? Please let us know. My mother stole $160,000 from me. I, 24 female, found out earlier this year that I was supposed to receive around $160,000 in inheritance money when my father passed away. I found out by looking into a cabinet in our house. I was compelled to do so because my mother acts rich or poor whenever it suits her, plus other strange behavior. I found a letter that was addressed specifically to me from the life insurance company that had my inheritance. All I needed to do was submit some paperwork and they'd give me a check. I'm not sure how, but my mother somehow submitted documents for me and even cashed the check that was in my name. I'm also not sure why she felt entitled to it when she got $500,000 in inheritance herself. When I confronted her about it, she obviously did not take it well. She was very adamant that it's her money, until I informed her that, after I found the documents, I called the life insurance company and received photocopies of the check, the submitted documents, etc. After I told her that, she tried negotiating with me, saying that she can give me $10,000 to start with and then $2,000 every month. I said no. I said she will guilt me into delaying her payments if we go that route. She tells me she will be homeless if I get all the money at once. I eventually make her show me her bank statements. As far as I know, she has around $330,000. In addition, she's been making six figures with her job for the past 3 years. Homeless? Yeah, right. I told her I need a good amount of money if I want to have any chance of moving out. I wanted to move out with my friend, but my mom took way too long to give me any money. I received $50,000 from her. Like a week or so later, she started asking if she could borrow $20,000 for a month. She said that she needs it in her bank account so that the lender can approve of the condo or house she wants to buy. She asked if I would be okay, and I stupidly told her that I'd be getting grants from school too. She then wanted to borrow $20,000 on top of the grant money by passive-aggressively mentioning it whenever she could. A few weeks later, she forced me to go with her to the bank to withdraw $20,000. This was on October 3rd. On November 23rd, I asked her to give me $2,000. I told her it's been almost 2 months and I want a portion of it back via text. She gives me the silent treatment, in text and in person. The next day, I try calling her. She starts crying hysterically, saying, 1. I knew I shouldn't have trusted you with money. 2. What are you doing? Things you shouldn't be? Are you gambling? Why are you so mean? You ruined my holiday. You've ruined my life. You're abnormal. You're just doing this because you're behind in life and you're desperate. You don't have utilities to pay for. I spent so much money on food the past month. I'm not exaggerating when I say I've never told her to buy me food or make me food, but she always uses it as a form of guilt. A couple of days later, we have a 4-hour argument. During this argument, I was so disgusted with her behavior that I told her I want nothing to do with her. A couple of days after that, to my surprise, she comes into my room and asks me to hug her. She starts crying and says that she just suppresses her thoughts and feelings. She says she'll give me $500 now and then $500 on December 22nd. What? I swallowed my anger for a couple of days, but then I could no longer hold it in. I wasn't giving her the silent treatment, but I wasn't looking at her or initiating any form of talking. She notices this and starts asking what's wrong. She goes, "It's the money, isn't it?" And then repeats the same thing she did last time. "Are you gambling? You have no utilities," etc. And again, she made it very clear that she wants to buy a condo or a house. I just can't remember which. I told her I'm mad at her because you told me you needed $20,000 for a month. It's been over 2 months and now you're still not giving it back, so you lied. After this, she started acting like she was about to cry and then she left the house. She then transferred another $500. I haven't talked to her since. It infuriates me that she thinks she's entitled to this money. Why do you need a house? You're getting old and you're single. Secondly, not only was this money only in your account in the first place because you committed fraud, but now I let you borrow money and you're going to treat me like it's an allowance? It's my money legally. Get over it. You already got $500,000 before you took my money. Since I was 18, I've been working minimum wage jobs. She's made it so clear as day that she thinks her needs are way above mine. I don't have utilities. I don't have a career yet, so I'm less important. Even if that's factually true, I'm your kid, and that money is legally mine. Also, I just want to share this example of her behavior that I just remembered. When I was 19, I was working at a tutoring place in addition to a restaurant while taking 16 units in college with no car. I was leaving the house one day to go get a haircut. My mom then asked me, "Where are you going?" I told her I'm going to go get a haircut. She then says, verbatim, "Really? You're supposed to be using that money to help me." That's how entitled she is. Like, OMG. At this point, she received $660,000, while her kid, who is a full-time student with 2 jobs and no car, is not important enough to use the money they earned from their job to go get a haircut. I'm so mad, and I just have a huge problem with getting this taken care of because I hate making people uncomfortable. This is also why I usually cannot blindside a person by randomly bringing an issue up. I usually have to text them first, but I'm starting to think that that's never a good idea. Ugh. Get an attorney and sue her. She's manipulating you left and right, and she's falsified documents and stole your money. Press charges. Get a lawyer. Mail fraud, insurance fraud, identity theft. Why are you being miserable for her? She's very likely ruining your credit and aspects of your future. You don't owe her anything. You need to stop this before it's too far. Your mother stole $160,000 from you, and you're worried about making her uncomfortable? She obviously wasn't uncomfortable forging your signature to steal the money. She has the money in her account, and you should demand she repay it in full immediately. She's a crappy person for continuing to manipulate you, and so what if she suddenly can't afford something as a direct consequence of her theft? She should be grateful you haven't retained an attorney and come after her or called the police. My husband's work wifey is trying to steal him from me. So I met work wifey last Thursday at the Christmas party. She introduced herself as work wifey and she claimed my husband as work hubby and told that to everyone. When she saw me, she just exclaimed, "Oh, we're like two totally different people. How weird is that?" Not weird at all. We don't know each other. No, I mean like because X and I get along so well. Like we totally get each other and we have a lot in common, like totally. That's why he's my work hubby. I didn't know what a manic pixie dream girl was, but apparently she is one, and apparently it was something to brag about. I just found the whole thing very amusing, but on our way home, it wasn't very amusing anymore. I felt a little bit of ick watching my husband's profile, wondering what was going on in his head. He's told me about his new work colleague that he got along with. He told me that she was great at her job and that she was a gamer like him. I don't even know how to hold the joystick properly. Not even sure if it's called a joystick anymore. Ugh, I sound like a boomer, don't I? I know that they text a lot too, even on weekends. I never thought about that before now. I found myself sit on the toilet seat at 3:30 a.m. scrolling through his phone in total silence not to wake him up. She is very youthful and quirky, her words, not mine. She is very funny too. Again, her words, not mine. She calls him hubs and hubby in every text, and in one text, she warned him that men fell easily for her and that she just wanted to give him the heads up. I guess it's because she's a youthful, quirky, funny, manic, pixie dream girl gamer. Her last text was from the same evening after we left the party. She wrote that she was upset that he didn't say goodbye before leaving and that I was a bit surprising to her because she didn't expect him to have this type. OMG, your wife is boring. I didn't expect that. I felt ashamed when I came to my senses. Cowering over his phone and reading weird, very juvenile messages, instead of being sound asleep beside my husband, that makes me safe in our relationship. But I couldn't help but agree with manic wifey in some parts. Why is he continually engaging with her? He doesn't flirt back, nor does he initiate conversations, but he doesn't really shut her down. My husband can be stupid and not noticing flirting, but I feel that this is just beyond being stupid. Does he enjoy the attention, or worse, does he reciprocate it? I just don't understand what's going on between them. Today I had my usual brunch with my mom, aunt, sister, and sister-in-law. They said that I was the jerk for not nipping it in the bud, and by it, they meant the budding affair. I disagreed and tried to explain that I couldn't be in a relationship where I needed to stand guard to keep away temptations. I want a marriage where he's with me because he wants to be with me, and if he cheats then, he doesn't want to be with me. My mother was the one who got the most upset and called me a moron and a jerk and said that this wasn't the mature thing to do. I need to tell my husband to end his friendship because if I didn't, then I let him cheat. Am I the jerk? I can't believe what life this is that they want me to lead and how it's so normal for my family to think that way. I want a willing husband, not a prisoner. I want someone who wants me 100% or nothing. Not the jerk, but I would be having a conversation with your husband about it and telling him how you feel. Whether he's initiating the conversation or flirting or not doesn't really matter if he's entertaining the conversation regardless. His colleague is bold, that's for sure. I can't believe she had the audacity to introduce herself to you as his work wife and then turn around and talk badly about you to your husband. She's fishing him to see what he thinks about his wife. I understand where you're coming from in regard to your husband, and you holding him accountable to being your partner is not the equivalent of him being a hostage. Personally, I hate the whole work husband and work wife BS. You mentioned your husband being oblivious. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt and say that's the case. What's wrong with pointing out how inappropriate what she's doing and his enabling behavior is? If he did not realize it, he'll address it, right? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or husband and his work wifey? Please let us know. If Reddit boy tried to pull this crap, he'd need a new head. Found an abandoned car in the woods, and it looked like something bad may have happened. I found an abandoned '99 Honda Civic in the forest. Normally I wouldn't think much of an abandoned car, but this just looked like something might have happened. The trunk was popped and items still inside. These items were a box of diapers, a sunshade for a pram, an infant-sized winter jacket, a plush toy for an infant, and an open envelope with a paycheck from a business in Reno. The envelope has a name, address, and employee ID number on it. There was a baby carrier in the back seat, which luckily only had some trash in it and not a baby. The other things in the car were just some foods, drinks, trash, and a sock. The car had the license plate removed and the lights and radio also removed, as well as the back tires removed. Outside the car was an empty box of diapers, a high heel hanging from a tree with the sole torn up, and the matching across the clearing on the ground, and a mound of fresh dirt between the shoe, tree, and car. I took photos of everything, and I wrote down the VIN and the name and the address on the envelope. I wandered around the surrounding area of the forest a bit more, and I found a pile of clothes strewn about on the ground, maybe 100 feet away from the tree line. I ran the VIN number through an online search, and the number doesn't come back as reported stolen. The other things that unnerved me were that everything was dry and mostly clean compared to the surroundings. We've had constant rainfall, and the ground was muddy, yet the diaper box on the ground was dry. The cardboard didn't seem to have been rained on or anything, or even absorbed much water from the mud. The contents of the trunk were also dry and fairly clean, which seemed wrong given the fresh mud and consistent rain. The exposed metal from where the tires were removed also hadn't rusted yet. The car was also neatly parked in the clearing and not on the road like it had got stuck in the mud or the snow. I called all of this into the police, gave them photos and the GPS location and Forest Service road number, but I've heard nothing back. The county this forest sits in is pretty small, so I don't even know if the police have the resources to even check on the car. I want to get some closure that whoever this belonged to is okay, and this is just a stolen car left in the woods. Does anyone have advice on what I can do to get more information on what happened? I'll admit, this forest has always given me an unnerving vibe, so maybe I'm reading too deep into this, but I do want to make sure that nothing worse happened to whoever owned that car. Update. I have good news. This was luckily the best case scenario, and my update is mundane. With the help of other users with far better detective skills than me, we were able to track down the individual's Facebook page. This has been confirmed to be the individual who owned the car. She's safe and her kid is safe as well. She's active on Facebook, and I contacted her with information on where her car is. She had posted about it being stolen in early September, and no one else had stumbled upon it until I did. Am I the jerk for coming to dinner with my ex and his new girlfriend, Uninvited? I, 32 female, broke up with my longtime partner, male 33, right before lockdown. We stayed in the same house during lockdown and continued to live together after lockdown was lifted because we generally get along, and we had a kid, a daughter who's 11, to raise together. Over the last 3 years, we've been roommates and co-parents, and that's it. One day, he was supposed to take our daughter to buy new school clothes, and she came back 10 minutes later in tears. She said they were on their way to the store when his new girlfriend called, and he drove her back home and dropped her off so he could go spend time with her. He even asked our daughter to lie to me for him, but she was tired of covering for him, implying that she had been lying for him for a while now. When he got home, we had a massive argument. I didn't care if he dated other girls. I cared that for some reason, he thought he had to sneak around, and it made him act like a jerk to me and our daughter. I told him if he had been a man about this new girl and just introduced me to her, then maybe we could have all been friends. But instead, he had to act like a teenager. It ended with him moving out to live with his parents. A couple of days later, he called and apologized. He said he hoped it wasn't too late for him to do things right, and he hopes we can all be friends. I was hopeful that we could finally co-parent in peace for the sake of our kid. This is where I might be the jerk. I've always been close with my ex's parents, to the point where even after we broke up, I would be invited over regularly for dinner. They said even if I wasn't their son's partner, I'm still their grandchild's mother, and that makes me family. So one day when my daughter texts me while at my ex's parents' house and invites me to dinner because they're having my favorite meal, I don't think twice about coming over, even though my ex and his girlfriend I've never met now live there. I figured everyone had to be okay with it since my daughter was inviting me. I end up having dinner with my ex's parents and daughter, but my ex only comes upstairs to grab 2 plates of food and goes back downstairs. I ask my ex's mom why, and she says his girlfriend doesn't feel well today. Whatever, I think. She's just sick, and I'll meet her another day. I have a perfectly pleasant dinner with my ex-in-laws, help clean up, and make a promise to bring them a coconut cake, ex-father-in-law's favorite, and take my daughter home. Later, my ex blows up my phone with texts and calls, saying it was so weird and rude that I came over for dinner uninvited, that I made his new girlfriend uncomfortable and like she wasn't welcome there, and that I caused trouble in their relationship because she assumes we must still be in love for me to come over and see his parents out of the blue like that, because exes don't do that and it's creepy. I had a talk with my daughter and asked her calmly if she had asked everyone else there if it was okay that I come over before she texted me, and she sheepishly said she didn't know she had to do that since it had never been a problem before. I didn't tell her about her dad's meltdown at me, or tell her dad that she's the one who invited me. She's a kid and shouldn't be involved. Instead, I just told him I'm sorry for me dropping by making things awkward, but I thought he wanted us all to be friends from now on, and I figured this was a good place to start being friends. He said there was no way she'd want to be my friend now that I made her feel uncomfortable in her own home. It wasn't my intention to make anyone uncomfortable, but I admit I'd be perturbed if he brought this woman into my home and I had not even been warned first. So, am I the jerk? Update. From now on, ex's new girlfriend will be called Kay. The day after the dinner, I bring my father-in-law the coconut cake I promised, but not wanting to stir up trouble, I text that I'm bringing it over instead of dropping by unannounced like I normally would. Father-in-law meets me on the porch instead of inviting me in like he normally would, and I gathered from his distant but polite tone and body language that he was basically shooing me away. I was hurt that a man who had always treated me like a daughter was being cold, but I didn't say anything about it and I left. Over the next couple weeks, my ex-in-laws continued to hold me at arm's length, where once I would consider them not only family, but close friends. I used to take mother-in-law to doctor's appointments and shopping trips, but texts asking her about her next appointment or inviting her to come shopping with me went unanswered. I used to go fishing and go-karting with father-in-law, but these invites also stopped. I had a sneaking suspicion my ex was behind the sudden change in my ex-in-laws, and I also started to notice a change in my daughter. Because my ex and I were never actually married, there was no actual custody agreement between us. She would just text her dad if she wanted him to come pick her up, or text me if she wanted to come home. She's always been a daddy's girl and spent more time with him than she did home with me, and I was fine with that. But after the dinner, she spent a lot more time home with me, and one day she went with her dad only to call me within the hour, crying and asking me to pick her up. On the way home, I gently reminded her that she could talk to me about anything, even if it was hard. That adjusting to her dad having Kay in his life would be a challenge, but if she had any problems, she could tell me, and I'd help her fix them. And she told me what had transpired over my ex and Kay's relationship from her point of view. My ex and Kay had been dating for about 6 months before my daughter told me, and she pretty much knew about it from the beginning. My ex told her she couldn't tell me about it, and she agreed because she didn't want us to fight. My ex also had Kay around my daughter from the beginning, and my daughter was wary of her at first, but started to like her. So the people saying I should meet Kay before she was around my daughter, that ship unfortunately sailed long ago. The day after the dinner, mother-in-law texted my daughter and basically said, "You're not in any trouble, but don't mention your mom around Kay again." My daughter texted back, asking why, and she just said, "It's just easier not to upset her." Kay started doing all the things with my ex-in-laws that I used to do. She took mother-in-law to doctor's appointments. She took mother-in-law shopping. She went fishing with my father-in-law and tried to replicate my coconut cake. My daughter tried talking to her dad and said it felt like Kay was trying to replace me. And my dad just said, "Well, she's just being their daughter-in-law. Your mother isn't their daughter-in-law anymore." Still, my daughter is stubborn and insisted it wasn't fair that her mother was being excluded from the family. Her dad just kept repeating, "She's not family," to which my daughter yelled, "She's my mom. That makes her more family than Kay." At this point, Kay apparently got up and left the room while my ex ran after her. Kay didn't just leave the room though. She took her keys, got in her car, and drove away. My ex drove after her, and mother-in-law and father-in-law started scolding my daughter and saying she needed to apologize to Kay when she got back. That's when my daughter called me in tears and asked me to come pick her up. She's insistent that she doesn't want to go back over there until they all apologize to her, and I don't blame her. I'm honestly at a loss at all this. My ex never had a problem with me being close with his parents, even though we broke up. I was the one who stayed with mother-in-law in the hospital for 4 months after she had a heart attack and subsequent heart surgery in 2021. I was the one who went to doctor's appointments and organized her medication and helped her with physical therapy. I was the one cooking meals every night and bringing them to father-in-law because both he and my ex had been spoiled rotten by mother-in-law and don't even know how to cook for themselves. I was the one cleaning the house for them for over a year when mother-in-law recovered. I did it all because I loved them, not just as family to my kid, but as dear friends. I don't know if this sudden change in behavior is how my ex felt all along or if Kay had something to do with it, though I suspect it's a combination of both. My ex has weaponized incompetence down to an art form, and I suspect now that he has a replacement woman to take care of him and his aging parents, and he no longer wants me to do it. But that's basically all that's happened over the last month. Radio silence for me from people I used to love dearly, and then pushing my daughter away until she ran home in tears. And as sad as I am for me, it breaks my heart for her tenfold. Update. It's only been a couple of days since my daughter called me crying, and she's been distracting herself with school and friends, so I haven't really had time to sit her down and talk about how she's feeling at all. All I've asked her is if she wants me to tell her if her dad tries calling, and she said yes. She wants to know if he tries to call. She's had monthly online therapy sessions since her dad and I first broke up, but the first thing I did in light of this was contact her therapist and schedule her for an emergency in-person session. I've seen several people mentioning contacting a lawyer and getting a custody agreement set up, and I'm a little ashamed to admit it hadn't occurred to me to do that. My ex hates anything to do with court proceedings. It's an almost irrational fear of his. He once had a panic attack over getting a jury duty letter, so part of me thinks he won't take this to court, but the other half of me knows that I don't even know this man anymore, and I'm absolutely not leaving anything to chance. I'll be looking into getting a lawyer as soon as possible and see if we can get some sort of emergency custody order that says she doesn't have to go back there until the matter of split custody is decided. Update. I don't want to go into too many details because the situation doesn't really involve me anymore, just my ex, and he is still my daughter's father, so I'll give the short version. When my ex was contacted by my lawyer, he started blowing up my phone, saying I was trying to take his daughter and all his money away from him, and how could I do this to him, because he would never do this to me, etc. I shut that down quick and told him I didn't want a dime from him. I just wanted some assurance that the agreement we already had in place, daughter stays with me but is free to visit him, stays in place. He kept trying to say lawyers were unnecessary because he wasn't going to try to take her. I stuck to my guns and he eventually caved. Meanwhile, I had my own things to sort through, and so did my daughter. It took a while to fully own the fact that I definitely contributed to the pain that she's now feeling. When I broke up with my ex, I comforted her by telling her nothing would change. We were still living together. Then her dad moved out, and still I told her nothing will change. I'll still be active in father-in-law and mother-in-law's lives. I'll still go over there with you all the time. And while that was a nice thought, it didn't really prepare my daughter for the reality that families change all the time, and change doesn't have to be bad or scary. This whole time, she was basing her mental health on the idea that nothing about her family would change. So Kay's introduction slowly started to crumble away that feeling. But change is good, change is normal. I may not like being cut off from my in-laws, but they're not wrong when they say that I'm not family anymore. They're not wrong for trying to be welcoming to the new woman in their son's life. It sucks, but life goes on. Anyway, my daughter has been going over there for a few hours about once or twice a week with lots of caveats that she, her dad, and I all agreed to. She gets to decide when she comes over. Her dad can invite her, but she's allowed to say no and he can't argue. No one will force her to interact with father-in-law, mother-in-law, or Kay if she doesn't want to. No one will take her anywhere if she doesn't want to go. If anyone makes her uncomfortable, she'll leave and walk to Diane's house and call me to come pick her up. Diane is a coworker of mine who lives 3 blocks away and has known my daughter since she was a baby. This arrangement has been working out, and my daughter has said everyone has been extra nice to her, but they haven't actually said sorry for anything they did. She slowly started to seem happier and happier over there, and asked if she could go to father-in-law's birthday party because her aunt and uncle from out of state would be visiting with her cousins, and I said yes. Well, tonight she came home and told me a doozy of a story. The party was great, everyone was having a good time, and my daughter's older cousin was showing her how to play the Nintendo 64. Kay was nowhere to be found. Apparently, she didn't feel good again, and my ex went downstairs to check on her. Suddenly, they heard him screaming, "Where is it? What did you do with it?" Everyone got quiet and looked to the stairs, where my ex stomped up and said everyone had to turn out their pockets because some money was missing from father-in-law and mother-in-law's safe. For some context, the safe is locked under the stairs and needs a key and combination to get into it. It has important documents for the whole family and emergency cash in it. Father-in-law, mother-in-law, my ex, and now Kay are the only ones who know the combination, and the only key is hidden in father-in-law and mother-in-law's room. My ex went downstairs to check on Kay, and she was asleep in bed, but the door to the cupboard under the stairs was open. He got a bad feeling and checked the safe, and about $2,000 was missing. He woke Kay up, and she cried and said she had been asleep the whole time, and someone must have come down and stolen the money while she was asleep. I was pretty gratified to hear that my ex's family are nowhere near as naive as he is, and immediately tore into him for believing that lie. None of them had a key or knew the combination, and all of them had been hanging out in the living room. Kay cleans father-in-law and mother-in-law's room all the time, and she knew where the key was. He told Kay the combination. Kay was downstairs the whole time. Kay is the only person who could have done it. He tried to defend Kay and told everyone to leave her alone. But father-in-law put his foot down and told his son to find the money or he would call the cops to do it. My ex went back downstairs to talk to Kay, and everyone upstairs could hear her crying and calling him names. She went to get in her car, and my ex followed her. And what did he see sitting in her back seat? A bag stuffed to the brim with money. A bag that wasn't there a few hours ago. My ex tried to stop Kay from leaving, but she tore out of the driveway. Father-in-law and mother-in-law are furious and want to press charges, and my ex is begging them not to, saying he can get her to bring it back. I don't know where this is going to go next, but honestly, I'm just kind of glad Kay and my ex didn't take me up on my original offer to be friends, because holy cow. Am I the jerk for freaking out at my husband's thoughtful gift? Yesterday was my birthday. My husband was getting on my case lately about buying too many peppermint mocha lattes from Starbucks. For 2 days before my birthday, he's hyping me up about the gift that he will give me first thing in the morning. So he surprised me with a homemade peppermint mocha latte that he made. The twist is, he made it with essential oils that some random lady at a health food store assured him were okay. I have a panic attack after he tells me he fed me essential oils. I felt enraged and hated when I looked on the essential oil bottle and it clearly states that it's for use in a humidifier. He didn't even read the bottle before deciding to make me this sweet gesture with it. I've never been interested in essential oils, so he has no reason to think I'd want to ingest this. He says he isn't the jerk because how could he know a shopkeeper would lie? Am I the jerk for blowing up and telling him that I'm so disappointed? Update. Poison Control said I'll be fine and it's probably the panic attack that messed up my stomach. He bought the food-safe peppermint so he can redo the drink safely now. Husband understands I'm not an essential oil gal and won't be giving me any more, ever. Not the jerk. Are you okay? As in, not sick? I can't even process the idea of thinking an essential oil is the way to flavor your coffee. It would have taken him minutes to either find the hard candy cane style stirs for coffee or a candy cane itself slowly dissolved in the coffee, or the syrups used in the coffee shops. I can't compute that being his big surprise idea at all. I expected you to say a fancy coffee maker or something to do your own coffees, not a poisoned drink. I'm sorry it ruined your birthday. I can't imagine the anxiety or disappointment, but I hope you find a way to celebrate for yourself. Maybe an extra trip to the coffee shop is in order. Heck, get a snack while you're there. OP. My stomach hurt really bad the next day, today, but I'm okay. He fed his sister one of these coffees too, 2 days ago, and she's okay. Wait, he did it twice? Oh my, that's worse. I'm glad his sister is okay, but that could have gone so differently. Does he realize how dangerous the situation could have been? I hope he's extremely apologetic at the very least. I also wonder if he really did ask for advice from a store employee, because surely there could have been some serious legal implications for them advising that a product is safe for human consumption when it clearly isn't. I'd be telling your husband you plan to file a complaint ASAP, because even if it's just minor, you had side effects. The next person to be given such advice might not be so lucky. Keep an eye on yourself, and I hope you feel better soon. P.S. I would get checked out ASAP to be safe if I were in your situation. Not the jerk. Dear OP's husband, had you thought for a single second, or Googled, you'd found that you can buy peppermint syrup. Non-food grade essential oils are toxic in large quantities. Get over yourself. Ho ho holy cow. OP, this is the most unattractive part. Why do people think they're too good to Google stuff? Not the jerk. This is definitely divorce-worthy. By giving you this coffee that he made, there's no telling what could have happened to you. Do you really think a man who loves you would put you in this kind of a position? You deserve so much better, and I hope you find it. You're the jerk. Welcome to 2023, where a guy makes his wife a special mocha on her birthday, and instead of showing any appreciation, she goes on the internet to complain about how horrible he is, where she receives validation from a bunch of bitter losers. There's nothing wrong with flavoring your drinks with a few drops of essential oils, and the wording on the bottle is just a disclaimer. There are tons of products with the same disclaimer that are meant to be consumed. I guess you've been living under a rock and didn't know this. You're totally overreacting, and you sound absolutely insufferable. You know why his sister was fine when she drank it? Because she's a mature adult who doesn't throw a fit when they get all upset over nothing like you did. I feel so bad for your husband, along with most guys these days who are stuck with wives like you. If the wife had made the special drink for her husband and added a few drops of essential oil to it, and the husband threw a fit, you would all be calling him a man-child and telling her to never do anything nice for him again. Why are you all so obsessed with turning women against their husbands? Don't get married, guys. It's just not worth it these days. You will not be appreciated or respected, and when you make your wife a special mocha, she will talk smack about you online, and everyone will insult you for it. Well, now you know your husband is illiterate. He can't read the "not safe for human consumption" warning clearly written on the bottle. And he's cheap because he thinks you spend too much money at Starbucks. Am I the jerk for rolling my eyes at my boyfriend's proposal because it took 25 years of me begging? Yesterday, after dinner, my boyfriend of 30 years proposed to me. He just walked towards me holding a box and said to open it. It was a ring, and I had pictured this moment a million different times, but never thought I'd be so apathetic. My boyfriend then said that he was retired now and wants to kick back and enjoy life with me, and would love to do it all with me as his wife. A nice speech and all, but from the 5-year mark of our relationship onwards, I had been making clear my deep desire to get married and was consistently dismissed, given empty promises, gaslit. We've been to therapy during this time, and I was in denial about the fact he was just giving me the false illusion of progress to stall. My boyfriend and I have 4 kids. The oldest 3 are adults, while the youngest is 15. She was not at home when all of this went down. All of our kids went to a private school filled with typical Southern soccer parents. I had to endure PTA moms' jabs about me not sharing a last name with my kids. Preteen years were horrible because the other kids would taunt my kids by saying, "Your dad would rather be a sinner than marry your mom." My boyfriend's mom would tell him marriage would be selfish on my part, it's just a piece of paper. My boyfriend ended up rising in the ranks until he became an executive. I was a stay-at-home mom, so I felt like there was always a power imbalance, exasperated by the fact I could be tossed anytime. I partly did stay because I wanted my kids to have the best life and because I felt lucky and proud to be partnered with such an intelligent, successful man, but also because I loved him. These past few years, my boyfriend's career has taken a downturn. He will never be poor, but the company he was part of took a nosedive during 2020, and he had made enemies out of associates and board members. He decided to step back from his role and take the generous severance agreed upon. Now he's living off his investments and wants to relax. I did not like how his career ended and how he treated people, and had been deciding whether I wanted to leave and find somebody else after our youngest turned 18. So the proposal was a shock because I should hope that he noticed I've avoided conversations about the future as of late. He rattles on about downsizing our house so we can travel and also cutting back on other expenses. But we're not married, so it's all his money and house anyway. He did notice my eye roll and was offended. He asked what's wrong, and I said that suddenly now that he's downsizing, I'm good enough to marry. He got mad and said that now that he's downsizing and no longer an executive, I suddenly think our relationship is disrespectful and started implying I was a gold digger. I was so angry I walked out and said I might just go out looking for a respectful relationship because I don't know what respect is anymore. Am I the jerk? Wowza, what did you expect? Like seriously, you wanted a marriage, but you stayed half your life with someone so set on making you the bad guy for wanting that until recently. Why would you stay with someone like that? Why would you reproduce with someone like that several times? It's just disappointing for your kids to suffer that much bullying for this, like all for nothing. I don't know who the jerk is, but unfortunately for him, he kind of missed the chance. And unfortunately for you, you put yourself in a box. If you were begging him to propose, why did you stay for 25 years? Help me understand what sympathy OP wants. This is a bed you made and laid in for 30 years. He showed you early on he didn't want to be your husband, but you stayed. You get a crappy proposal and you want to be upset about it? Not only that, you had 4 kids with this dude. Not the jerk for rolling your eyes. You're the jerk, everyone sucks here, for enabling him to do this for 25 years. Get all of the privileges of being a husband without ever being your husband. You begged someone to marry you, a value that you have. He didn't, and you proceeded to have several kids with him. Like, girl, stand up, please. He wasted your whole life, and now he's playing in your face. You're in your 50s and you have kids with him. You've probably lived together long enough to be common law married. In my opinion, it's a stupid and wasteful ritual that humans use to make their coupling official. Traditions don't really matter. You're the jerk. Go pout and then get over yourself. You're not a princess. Sure, blah blah blah. Here's what I read. Willingly chose to stay with uber-rich executive who made it clear at the time he wasn't into marriage. Executive stops making extra mega money and suddenly it's time to walk. The fact this impressive man has built enough financial stability and freedom to live a modest, comfortable life of 25 to 30 years of retirement and travel isn't enough for you. The fact that he stayed with you all these years and now says, yes, I'm retiring at 50 and I'm still happy and wanting you, isn't enough for you. The fact that this rich 50-year-old didn't dump your ungrateful self and find a willing 25-year-old to rock his world on every continent isn't enough for you. Do him a favor and walk like you want. I'll see you back here in a year or two crying about how it's so hard out there. Women like you are the worst. Yes, you're clearly the jerk. Yes, us young 20-something-year-old women would love to settle down with some crusty 50-plus-year-old man with 4 kids from a previous relationship with a woman he had strung on for 2+ decades. Buzz off. The absolute delusion in men like you. What does she think her prospects are at this point? She's gonna have to get a job like everyone else. But at this point, I think she blew it. I wouldn't marry her if I was that guy. I think you should get married, and when your youngest turns 18, you divorce and get half of his stuff. Just make sure that it's possible. You dedicated your life to raising his kids and taking care of his house so he could rise in his career. You deserve your part in it also, not the jerk. Your mindset is probably the reason he didn't marry her. Not the jerk. No reason to stay. Leave him and have him pay child support. Your kid is old enough to choose who they want to live with. Find someone who will respect you, finally. He proposed because he's scared. He wants to wrap you up because he can't impress another woman now and doesn't want to be alone. Or you can say yes, but you want a prenup to protect your future. Half his investments and money should be a start. Karen divorces me and marries her boss. Huge mistake. I, 47, got divorced from my first wife when I was 29. We had 2 kids and my folks loved them more than anything. My ex-wife wasn't happy with the lifestyle that I could provide. I wasn't making a lot of money, but we weren't in debt or anything. We had good cars and we had just put a down payment on our first home that we could own. Her boss was rich. He was 47 and he could provide luxuries that were out of my reach. She left me for him. I still had to pay child support, but I guess I was lucky that I didn't pay spousal support. I had to work and I couldn't get custody. I got visitation, and my ex made it hard. The kids were young and she manipulated them. If I had planned to take them to a local resort for our summer vacation, she would take them to Disneyland the week before. I would always come up short. Eventually, the kids refused to spend time with me. It went to court, and I basically had to accept that I couldn't force them to see me or my parents. I met my second wife, who's 33, at the dog park when I was 37 and she was 24. She had a son who was about the age my son was the last time my parents got to see him. My parents accepted him right away. He loves them. My wife is like a daughter to them. It is what I always wanted for a life. We have 2 more kids now who are 8 and 5. My stepson is about to graduate next year. So a few years ago, my dad sold his company. He's an engineer and he had some patents that ended up being worth a fair bit of money. He paid off my house. He also made educational funds for my 3 kids. He figured the older ones were done with school and hadn't bothered to visit them in years, so they didn't need anything from him. Turns out that was wrong. My ex-wife married a scam artist. He was rich, but he wasn't rich enough for the lifestyle she wanted. So he stole from his clients, and then he went to jail. My oldest kids are in a lot of debt. My ex is living with her parents. She recently tried to tell me that my parents needed to be fair with all their grandkids. I told her that it was their money to spend on the people they loved and who loved them back. She said that we were punishing her kids for her mistakes. I said that both of our kids were adults and hadn't made any effort to see me or my parents in over a decade. She said I'm being a jerk for not convincing my parents to help her kids. It feels like there's a lot missing from this story. You really make yourself out to be a martyr, OP, but fathers don't just get visitation only for no reason, and kids don't just go no contact for a decade because you couldn't afford Disneyland. You then married someone 13 years younger than yourself, which in this context just feels off. So, I don't know, dude. It sounds like either you and your family need to start treating your kids better, or you've lost them forever. Someone needs to be the adult here, but it seems like none of you are willing. OP. Okay, so I went through the comments and yours stuck out. I'll do my best to be honest here. I was not a perfect father. I don't think that anyone ever has been. I made mistakes, but I did try my absolute best. The best example I can give is that I took all of my time off when the kids weren't in school. I tried to make sure that we had quality time together. I didn't see them much when I was working. Their mom did the heavy lifting when it came to parenting. I gave each of my kids the full amount that I had saved for them for college. Their stepdad bought them each a car. I cannot afford to compete with that. Well, I can now, but I couldn't back then. The money I sent them was enough to cover 1.5 years of in-state tuition. The reason I use Disneyland as an example is because it seemed to me like once she found out my vacation time and plans, she then took the kids for a very expensive vacation to a place I would have had trouble affording. When I took them the following week, they were all vacationed out and just relaxed. I had planned for us to enjoy some time outdoors. I was disappointed, but I let them stay in the hotel and just play video games and read. I guess it was a boring vacation because they told me that they didn't want to go there again. They had enjoyed it there before. My wife was 24 when we met and had a kid. She wasn't a teenager or anything, and we got pregnant because we wanted to. I loved having a child in my life again, and we wanted more kids. My wife was willing to accept the hours that I work, and because I have more experience now and seniority, I make more money than I did during my first marriage. You keep mentioning how much money you make, but I just don't see how that factors into your story in any way. Kids grow up with poor fathers all the time and don't go no contact with them for a decade over it. Having less money than their mother doesn't mean that you only get visitation. I'm sure there were times where you worked to be a good father, but I guarantee you that if we asked your kids, they would be able to shed some light on what really happened in their childhood to have it all end up like this. And my earlier point was that it was your job and will always be your job to maintain contact with your kids, unless they explicitly don't want it, in which case you did something very bad. Even though they're older now, it's still your job to do anything you can to maintain a relationship with them if they want it. Sometimes kids pull back when they feel abandoned to see if that parent will fight for them. Kids need to know that their parents will fight for them. If you didn't fight for them, you just let them go no contact, then their worst fears are realized and you become an absolute deadbeat. In which case, your question should be, I was a deadbeat father to 2 kids I had with my ex, and now my parents won't help financially support them, even though we could, and yet we're supporting the 2 kids I had with my new young wife. Are we the jerks? To be clear, I'm not calling you a jerk, because like I said, we just clearly don't know the whole story. Not the jerk. But I'm always suspicious when a guy says the woman manipulated the kids. Kids don't stop talking to you because you don't buy them stuff and take them to expensive places, especially all the way into their adulthood. It's usually because you were a deadbeat and broke promises and weren't around a lot for them to create a bond. This is rarely the mother's fault, as most will happily want to break for a few days. Think you need to find the real reasons they don't talk to you. Well, what do you think? Are OP and his parents the jerks or not? Please let us know. If I had grandkids that went 10 years without wanting anything to do with me, you can bet your backside I wouldn't be leaving them a darn thing. My cheating ex is trying to get me to be a father to her affair partner's son after he ghosted them. Okay, to cut a long story short, I met my ex at a mutual friend's party. We got together. 6 months into the relationship, she got pregnant and had my son, Peter. When Peter was 1 year old, I caught her cheating with her friend. I found out later that they had been hooking up with each other on and off ever since we got together. I kicked her out. I was blindsided, not going to lie. She had no remorse for what she did. I wanted to completely cut her off, but I had Peter to consider. Despite her being a cheater, she's still a good mother. I'll give her that, and adored him. So for my son's sake, I reluctantly put away my pride and agreed to co-parent Peter. She moved in with a fair partner. She then announced that she was pregnant. I said good luck. She said there's a possibility I could be the father, as me and her were hooking up during the time she was cheating on me. We got the DNA test done, and I am not his father. It also got me worried about Peter, and I got him tested too. I was relieved to find out that he actually is mine. Anyway, on to the present. Peter is now 6 years old. His brother Daniel is 5. I didn't really have any interaction with Daniel, as my ex never really brought him with her when she dropped off Peter. But the times he was with her, he mostly just stayed in the car. My ex dropped Peter off to me, and she looked like she had been crying. Before I could ask if she was okay, she left. It was Peter who told me that Daniel's daddy hadn't come home for a long time, and his mother had been crying the whole time that he's been at her place. This bothered me because I didn't want my son around their drama. I was going to talk to my ex about this when she showed up to pick up my son. When she did, she had Daniel, and he got out and ran to me and hugged my leg and said, "Hi, Daddy." I was a bit taken aback. I just awkwardly patted his head and gently told him, "I'm not your daddy, sorry." He looked at me confused and said that my ex told him I'm his new daddy. I looked at my ex and she avoided eye contact. I told Peter to show Daniel his room. Ex didn't say anything. When they went inside, I said, "What the heck are you telling this kid?" She broke down crying and said her affair partner had ghosted them a month ago and she doesn't even know where he is. Daniel had been asking where his dad is, so she told him that I'm his new dad. I got angry and told her I'm not his dad. She said, "But I can be, and that he needs a father." I told her to go find his real father then. She just kept crying and got into her car and left without Daniel. I tried calling her, but she wouldn't answer. Daniel came out asking where she went and he looked frightened. I told him that she'll be back and he started crying. In desperation, I called her parents and they showed up to pick up Daniel. I explained what happened and they apologized. I was angry, so I called my sister to tell her about it, and she said that was it really that much of a problem that I be there for him? He's innocent in all of this and he is Peter's brother. Just think about it. I hung up. Problem is, I have been thinking about it and it's really messing with my head. I know he's innocent, but it's not my job, is it? Don't invite that responsibility into your life. She messed around and now she's finding out. Sure, Daniel is innocent, but so are you. A lot of people are innocent. That doesn't mean they are our responsibility. Raising kids is expensive and takes a lot out of you. Plus, she sounds like a give an inch, take a mile kind of person. Don't give her anything. Doubtful she will stop messing around in the future, and if you take on her responsibilities, it will never end. Come on now, use your thinking brain. If you take on even an ounce of responsibility for him, she can have legal grounds to say you agreed to take care of both of them. Block out the noise and take care of your son. Her son is not your responsibility. Also, for everyone saying the kid is innocent in all of this, so are you. You did nothing to her. You didn't cheat, you didn't mistreat her, you didn't lie. She did. Stop letting people get in your head and focus on your son. And let her know that if she tries that again, there will be consequences. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his ex? Please let us know. These stories just amaze me. I never knew how many trash people there were in the world. Am I the jerk for suggesting that we lock up the Christmas presents after what my niece did last year? Every year, my siblings and I, along with our families, spend Christmas with our parents. We stay at their house for a few days. Everyone opens gifts together. It's hectic, but it's a lot of fun. The kids enjoy having one big sleepover with their cousins. My mom likes having everyone home again. We all pitch in and it's a win-win. Well, last year, my brother married Sally. She has a 7-year-old daughter, Mindy. This was their first Christmas with us. It seemed like they were having a fun time. Christmas Eve, all the kids went to the finished basement to sleep. We told the kids to not open up gifts without us and to wake us up when they did. This was repeated several times. Once the kids were asleep, we put all the gifts under the tree and eventually we went to bed ourselves. The next morning around 6 a.m., I wake up early and head downstairs. I find the living room a mess. Half of the gifts were unwrapped. Several of them had been somebody got into those gifts. Several of them had been ripped from their boxes. There was Mindy playing with some of the toys. Most of the ones weren't even hers. She knows how to read, and they were all labeled, so she knew this. I was in shock. I went and got my brother, Sally, alongside the rest of the adults. Sally was super embarrassed. My mom was very upset. The other kids weren't up yet, so we tried to salvage what we could, while Sally talked to Mindy. Not everything could be fixed, and she had broken a couple of the toys completely. The broken ones weren't even her own toys. Luckily, not everything was damaged, and even the boxes that were, the kids didn't notice. But my nephew, my sister's son, had one of his big gifts destroyed, and he was sad when everyone else got theirs, while he was told he'd have to wait for a new one to come back in. Sally and my brother reimbursed everyone. Mindy didn't get to open gifts with everyone, but joined the festivities later. She apologized, but kept making excuses. She said she didn't want to wait, and she wanted to see what everyone else got. I bet she did. We're all preparing to go to my parents again this year. I put in the group chat that we should either lock the door to the living room this year or put a gate around the tree so no one can get to it. Like a doggy gate? I didn't mention specific names. I just said so that no one could get to the tree. Sally and my brother got mad, accusing me of treating Mindy like a baby or an animal. I said I'm not, but this is a precaution so none of the kids are tempted. They said this isn't necessary and I'm holding a mistake over Mindy's head. I said no, I'm not. I'm trying to make sure that we don't have a repeat here. Am I the jerk? I mean, why wouldn't you do this? It kind of isn't even about Mindy. Although of course it's about Mindy. She ruined Christmas and broke a lot of other people's toys. But you have a bunch of other kids who are notoriously bad with impulse control. Why not lock the door or put a gate around the tree? Any kid could be tempted by sleeping parents and gorgeously wrap presents under a lit tree. She's still only 7. Also, if your kid acts like a baby, they should be treated like one. Come on, Sally. The girl opened half the Christmas presents and you and your husband had to shell out to replace them. Wouldn't you rather lock the room than risk having to put out and feel embarrassed all over again? Not the jerk. Just get a crate to keep Mindy in. Problem solved. Am I the jerk for canceling Christmas this year? Title says it all. I'm the sole provider for my family. All credit cards are maxed, negative bank balance, upcoming missed payments until my next check, basically destitute for the foreseeable future. My wife and I usually decorate on Black Friday, but this year I don't want to. The thought of putting up our fake tree, knowing I'll have nothing to put under it, fills me with such a mix of shame, anger, and pain. I would prefer to just let December pass and cut out as many things as I can until I get my finances under control. Plus, my daughter is 2. She won't know, care, or even remember one missed Christmas. So, am I the jerk? I'm already a failure as a husband and father, so what say you here? You're the jerk. Decorating with stuff you have won't cost anything, but you will make your wife happy. Christmas isn't about presents under the tree. It's the memories you make around the tree with the people that you love. Let her decorate if she wants to. You're also a jerk to yourself in this post. Listen, debt cripples people. It crushes them and spits them out, so it has room to gobble up another guy. You aren't a failure. You gotta be nicer to yourself, man. Good luck. No jerks here. But just because you don't have anything under the tree doesn't mean you can't celebrate. Don't celebrate the presents, or lack thereof. Celebrate the things you do have. A wife who loves you, a daughter who will be thrilled to just spend time with her father. No need to spend money to celebrate. There's absolutely no need to feel shame just because you can't afford things. You're the jerk, but I say that gently. Your kid is only 2. You can make the best Christmas with very little. You have a month to look on Facebook Market. Do you have Nextdoor in your area? We've gotten a bunch of free stuff for the kids that neighbors give away. Check garage sales. My oldest thinks he's the king of the world if we give him $5 and take him to the dollar store. It's all junk that ends up in the trash eventually from breaking, but he loves it. Stream a Christmas movie and have cocoa. If you have access to a printer, print a bunch of Christmas coloring pages and have a color party. Walmart has $1 bathtub paint that's basically soap. Don't be so hard on yourself. There will be plenty of Christmases where you can go all out, and those will be remembered. Update. This has spun out of control. I never thought my sad man pity party would get this kind of response. I was expecting to be called a jerk, validate my self-loathing, and claw my way out of debt by working harder. I did not expect the absolute torrent of love and support that I in no way deserve or can accept. And I'm sorry for not making this crystal clear in my original post. Our mortgage and utilities are paid. There's food in our fridge, and my next paycheck is secure, even though it too will all go to bills with none left over for gifts. I pretended not to notice that we weren't keeping up our pre-child lifestyle without credit cards, and I got in over my head and now have to dig myself out of a relatively deep hole, meaning I won't have money for gifts and meals out and holiday gatherings and whatnot for a good bit of time to come. But I have a great job and an outstanding family support system who all live close by and know what debt feels like and will understand if we can't chip in this year with anything but our presence. But it just felt shameful to have the advantages I have and still manage to mess it up as bad as I did without asking for help. As for all the people begging me to accept help, here's why I can't. I make a good salary. There's no chance of me or my family going hungry. We have food and will have money for food budgeted into my paychecks, which are secure as my job is secure. I have an extremely well-funded 401k from 18 years of office work and my life insurance to safeguard my family. Thank you to everyone who is offering food. Thank you to those who offered to buy my 2-year-old's Amazon wish list. She's 2 and doesn't have a wish list. My wife and I had already decided that she has too many toys, so we only had things like books and a learning tablet in mind for her. She'll be okay if we can't buy her stuff. She already has stuff. Her close-in-age cousins live on our street, and we exchange toys and clothes all the time, and both of our houses are cluttered with stuff. Am I the jerk for telling my daughter's boyfriend to go home? I picked up my daughter's boyfriend, Ron, not his real name, from his house Friday night so we could watch a Christmas movie together. My daughter, Molly, not her real name, and I had already had dinner at a restaurant after Christmas shopping, but he hadn't, so I offered to make him dinner. Ron wanted to prepare something on his own, so I told him he could use our kitchen. He's done this before, is responsible, and uses our equipment with care. By the way, they're both 17. We get home and he walks into the kitchen, which was a mess, and that's my fault. I hadn't had time to clean it up after cooking dinner the night before. Ron says he can't work like this and proceeds to clean up the kitchen with my daughter's help. I left the kitchen to do something else. A few minutes later, I walk into the kitchen to make tea, and I hear my daughter say the mess is due to my procrastination. So I explained that I had been up since 3 a.m. I worked the early shift and hadn't had time to clean the kitchen because I had other things to take care of, and I had to take her Christmas shopping after work. She asked if I was done. I went to the living room to watch TV. Minutes later, Ron goes outside with a small compost bucket for kitchen scraps to dump in the large bin provided by the city. He walks back in, complaining about the gunk that's stuck in the bottom which did not fall out. It's a mixture of coffee grounds and bacon fat, so it's hard to shake it out. He tells me he's going to hose it off outside. As he's leaving, I remember that the outdoor hose is off because it's winter, so I yell, "Come back! The hose won't work. It's turned off." My daughter tells me not to yell, and I tell her to tell him the hose won't work. It's winter. This is the second time in a week that he's expressed disgust at our kitchen scraps bucket, so I'm getting irked about it because I take it as a criticism whether he means it that way or not. Also, the fact of his parents' kitchen always being clean is something that he and my daughter have made a point of mentioning a few times. Ron returns with a bucket and Molly washes it out in the sink. When she's done washing it, he comes to the living room holding one bucket, explaining that he's going to put parchment, baking paper, in the bottom to prevent gunk from sticking to the bottom again. I interrupt him and ask him to please not tell me about it because I'm not interested. He continues and I ask him again not to tell me. I don't want to know. He has a puzzled expression on his face and starts again. I tell him to stop talking about it, and if he can't stop, to go home because I don't want to hear about it. He stops and leaves the living room to join Molly in her room. About 15 minutes later, Ron says goodnight and leaves. Molly has asked me to apologize to Ron, and I'm having a hard time convincing myself that I was in the wrong. You're the jerk. In fact, everybody is a bit of a jerk here, but your daughter and her boyfriend are jerks in such innocuous ways, and you are a jerk in such a petty way. Your daughter didn't need to tell her boyfriend under your roof, "My mom is a procrastinator, that's why the kitchen is a mess." The boyfriend didn't need to make a big deal about the state of the kitchen or the state of the compost bin. They were rude, to the point of jerk territory, because yes, they're young, but they're also almost adults. They should know better. You, on the other hand, geez, insecure much? A 17-year-old came in your kitchen and helped your daughter clean it. He said it was messy. Wah! I gave him clear instruction and he didn't hear me. Of all solutions, I decided to yell. He made comments about my dirty compost bin. Yes, sure, he took initiative to empty it, clean it, and prevent further gunk, but I didn't need to hear about it. Wah! Come on. He was even polite enough to still say goodnight before leaving, even though you kicked him out for such a petty reason. He's doing you a favor. He's maybe a bit rude about it, but there were so many other ways to better handle it. Jeez, who's the adult here? You missed the most important part. OP admits it's their mess that they left and then goes and sits in another room while letting two kids clean up the mess they admit was theirs to clean, and then has the gall to complain about them not being pleasant and quiet and uncomplaining when they clean what sounds like a substantially messy room. You openly say that your food bin gets gunked up all the time, and Ron seems to be trying to make your life easier and is just letting you know and seeing if you're okay with it because you're the adult in the household. Listen, if you're ashamed to have him clean your mess and have feelings about it, then why not clean it yourself? Or at least be one of the cleaning. Let me guess, you expected Ron to clean up after himself had he stayed, right? You're the jerk. You're the jerk. This is what happens when you choose to raise your kids in a fatherless home. They grow up to disrespect you and bring partners over who will also disrespect you. There's a reason families are supposed to have a mother and a father, just like cities need police and social workers. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Ron and Hermione? Please let us know. Your mom works a full-time job and she goes to work at 3 a.m. Instead of complaining about your mom's procrastination in the dirty kitchen, why not just clean it yourself? We lose a lot of subscribers when you say things like that. Fine with me. Maybe we can gain some new subscribers who have brains. Hit that subscribe button if you have a brain. Am I being selfish by leaving my husband at home for Christmas? Context. I'm 39, female. My parents and I live across the country from each other. My older brother and his family live closer to them, but still requires a flight to visit. My dad, who's 73, passed away from a year-long battle with pancreatic cancer in mid-September. My mom, who's 73, has also been in the process of diagnosing why she has increasing memory issues, specifically with language, understanding words and remembering names of everyday things. Right after he passed, my mom's cognitive test showed a significant decline, and she's currently in the process of being diagnosed with either Alzheimer's or dementia. My brother, who's 44, and I were by our dad's side when he passed, and my husband, who's 44, flew in quickly after. We then had a memorial service about a month later in late October where lots of extended family attended, and it was lovely. To top it off, the week before Thanksgiving, my friend/coworker, 42 male, passed unexpectedly. I'm devastated. Thanksgiving, my husband and I stayed local and had a nice low-key holiday with his parents. My mom, brother, and much of my family got together on the other side of the country. Christmas plans. I have 2 weeks off work. It's my mom's 74th birthday on the 23rd. It's also my 40th birthday on January 1st. My brother and his family plan to go for an extended time, just as I would ideally like to be with her at this time and to work on getting the house ready to be sold in the next 3 to 6 months and figure out if she needs to move into memory care and where, etc. Dilemma. It's very expensive to fly across the country for Christmas, and my husband is very practical with spending money. However, I don't really care how much it costs right now. My mom needs me. I also need my mom. I'm reeling from what's been going on. Plus, her biggest challenge is communicating and using technology, so even FaceTime is tricky, and I don't know how much time we have left with her. My husband is saying I'm being selfish for leaving him alone at Christmas and to deal with the dog in the house. He thinks it's enough that my brother is going to be there with her and that we were just there twice, for my dad's final breaths and subsequent funeral. So we should just go sometime in January or February. Husband will technically not be alone while I'm gone. His brother, with a wife and kids, and parents live nearby, and another brother, also wife and kids, will be visiting for 3 weeks. I've said he could come with me and we figure out who can watch the dog. His response is that it's too much money and he doesn't view it as a vacation since the bed in my old room is small, etc. He has suggested that we should go away somewhere for a few days since I have the time off work, but obviously not across the country to my mom's house. I would structure the travel dates to leave for 10 days and still see his family that's visiting and be back before my birthday. So we'd still have time together while I'm off work and celebrate together. Regardless, to him, if I go, I'm being selfish. But I disagree because it's not about him right now. So should I book a ticket, or am I a jerk who should put my husband higher up on my priority list? Update. With all of your encouragement, I booked my departure flight to go see my mom so that I could lock in a decent price and relieve some anxiety. A few days later, I was able to book my return flight with points that I've been saving for ages so the cost really hasn't been too bad. I opted to go for 10 days, and sadly, I've been getting the cold shoulder, as expected, since telling my husband, and my mental health is at an all-time low. I reached out to a grievance counselor today to help process the loss of my dad and friend and cope with my mom's upcoming diagnosis. We have a lot to consider in the future, but thank you for helping me have the confidence to do what's right in my heart and spend time with my precious mama for her birthday and first holiday season after losing my dad in September. Money is definitely finite, but you also can't take it with you. Plus, time with my mom is priceless. I don't know why he doesn't get it, and I'm sad for him, to be honest. I just hope he realizes that this coldness will push me away, not make me want to stay here again. I realized that we stayed home last holiday, so I technically missed my dad's last Thanksgiving and Christmas. Can't let that happen this time around. My boyfriend's mother expects me to lie about what ingredients she's putting in a Christmas cookie. Background: my boyfriend, 30 male, has huge sensory issues and refuses to eat any sorts of cheese but mozzarella or Parmesan. He despises fish as well. We've been together for about 9 years now. Will not touch or eat anything that even has these ingredients in them. He has to read the ingredients list. His mother is staying with us for Christmas. His mom told me that this Christmas cookie she's been making for years has ricotta cheese in it. My boyfriend has been unknowingly eating it for years as well. I was astounded because I never knew it either. She's staying with us for the holidays and wants me to take her to go buy this cheese without my boyfriend there so he doesn't know we're buying it. I feel conflicted because he's always said to tell him what's in the food I cook, and I always do. But if I tell him this, she will be extremely upset and they'll fight, and I will be blamed by her. If I don't tell him and he finds out, he will most likely be very upset with me and we will fight. If he doesn't find out, I'll feel extremely guilty and like a liar. It's a lose-lose situation. What should I do? Update: I managed to get out of taking his mom to the store. She went with my boyfriend and told him that the ricotta cheese was for something that she'd be making for his nephews when they come visit and laughed about it. I told her it's wrong to lie about this. She basically ignored me. At least that guilt is off my shoulders. I still haven't gotten the chance to talk to him alone. I will most likely go with the approach one commenter said. Basically, I found out something you love has an ingredient you dislike. Do you want to know about it or forget I said anything? Thank you for all the suggestions. I can't believe how much this blew up. Update 2. I told him the truth this morning and it went fine. I explained both sides and how I was unsure about saying anything because I didn't want to spoil a good memory or cause tension between him and his mom. He told me that he appreciated me telling him and that he would have been very mad and upset if I didn't. He also said he was already suspicious when she bought the cheese in the first place, which I was relieved to hear. I said, please don't tell your mom that I told you. He told me he would catch her in the act. I told him this is also a good opportunity to reflect and think about how cheese he normally hates can be okay as a baking ingredient because it doesn't taste like cheese. He said it was gross. I offered to show him the Reddit post as well, and he said no thank you. He didn't want to think about ricotta cheese anymore because he felt like he was going to throw up. As for checking ingredients, this is his mother. He doesn't feel the need to check ingredients because she's his mother and he normally feels safe and trusts her cooking. When we go out to eat, a server's confirmation of no cheese or fish is enough for him. When I cook something new, sometimes he'll ask me what's in it or if I offer a list to show him the recipe. I am aware that his behavior is childish, but everyone has their flaws. As I've mentioned already, please stop insulting him and saying these things, saying we shouldn't date anymore, etc. We've had many discussions about his specific food aversions in the past. I've called him out on how silly it is and we've argued. Been there, done that. I would leave and date an actual adult, but that's just me. Dang, there's a lot of bad takes in this thread. Everybody gets to decide what they put in their bodies, even if you and I think it's stupid and irrational. Unbelievable that this is even controversial. Your boyfriend sounds like a big baby, to be honest. I would help her buy the cheese. Ricotta cheese is more like a cream than a cheese, so it doesn't really count anyways. If his mom has been making these cookies for years and it predates your relationship, stay out of it. Back up your boyfriend. Forget his mother. Why are you dating a guy who would freak out about cookies? This is utterly pathetic. If he's going to have a tantrum over something he's been eating already that does him no harm and is not a moral or religious issue, then he isn't worth dating. Calling him childish over this is an insult to actual kids. Tell him or don't, but if he freaks over it, he needs professional help, frankly. Your boyfriend has issues. My stepdaughter is demanding a trust fund from me. I, 39 female, come from a very wealthy family. I never had to struggle for anything because my mom or dad would always just give it to me. I can say that I grew up spoiled, but I grew out of that phase once I had my twins. Since I was so spoiled and never got in trouble for anything as a teenager, I was always going to parties with my friends, doing things I shouldn't have been doing. Then at 16, I found out I was pregnant, and I gave birth at 17 to my two beautiful twins, a girl and a boy. Thankfully, my parents were supportive and helped me through the process. My parents had set up a trust fund for me when I was a kid, and I wasn't able to access it until I was 18. So when I turned 18, I moved out and got a condo. I only used my trust fund whenever it was for my kids, rent, or essentials around the house. I also took some out and put it in an emergency fund. I got a job at my dad's company, so I was able to live comfortable, but not keep up with the lifestyle that I grew up with. When I was 31, I met my now husband and his daughter, who was 4 years younger than my kids. Me and my husband dated for about 4 years, then we got married 2 months before my twins' birthday. On my twins' 18th birthday, my parents gifted them each a trust fund of their own. It summed up to $200,000 each. Now, my twins are both 22 years old, and both are thriving. I like to give myself a pat on the back for how I raised them and not how my parents raised me. Now to the issue at hand of my stepdaughter, who is now 18 years old, and for the past couple of months, she's been saying how she couldn't wait to get her trust fund like my twins, and I didn't know if she would or not because I never knew about the twins. Now when her birthday came around, she did get money, just not the trust fund from my parents. Instead, they gave her a car. But to say she was disappointed is an understatement. She said we didn't love her because she wasn't blood, and that we've always treated her differently because she wasn't my daughter, which wasn't true. I've loved her since the day I met her, and I've always treated her like she was one of mine. She then asked me why didn't I tell her that she wasn't getting a trust fund, since that was all that she was talking about, and I told her that I didn't know if she was getting one or not. Then she told me that I should have made one for her myself. I tried to tell her that it wasn't possible, but she didn't want to listen to me and just said that she hated me. So, am I the jerk? Edit. I would just like to add beforehand, my husband has told her multiple times to not be expecting a trust fund because she might not get it. And I also told her that I didn't know if she would get one or not, but she chose to ignore us. Edit 2. So I had a talk with my parents and stepdaughter. I did ask my parents how come they didn't give her a trust fund like my twins. They said that since they don't know stepdaughter that well, that they felt like a trust fund was too personal because they didn't have that grandparent-grandchild relationship, which is understandable. My parents rarely got to see stepdaughter because she just moved in with me and my husband when we got married, and my mom and dad like to travel a lot, so they really only got to see her on holidays and birthdays. That's why they got her a car, because it's not that big of a present, because our last car was wrecked up pretty bad. I also apologized to her for not just telling her that she wasn't getting a trust fund and letting her get her hopes up, but I did explain to her that she shouldn't just expect something just because someone else got it, especially something as personal as a trust fund. She apologized for how she reacted and thanked my parents for the car, but I think she's still disappointed, so I plan to take her out of the country for a birthday trip with my husband and the twins. Also, for anyone wondering, the car she got was a 2023 BMW 5 Series. Not the jerk. Your stepdaughter has been a part of the family for only 4 years. Why would she feel entitled to a trust fund from your parents? How has your husband handled her expectations? That's what I was thinking. If they set up a trust fund for OP when she was a kid, they probably set up a trust for the twins after they were born and had 18 years to contribute and let interest accrue. If anything, maybe let the grandparents know she was talking about it and see if they were going to do the same for stepdaughter. But I'm really not sure how I feel about that. It's the grandparents' money to do with as they please, not the stepmom's. So you married her dad 4 years ago, and somehow she felt that when she turned 18, she'd be entitled to a generous trust fund from your parents? Is that correct? That's kind of crazy to be honest. But what's crazier is that nobody, not you, not your husband, sat her down when she started to bring this up and say that it probably wouldn't happen. Not the jerk. It's a wild expectation for a 17-year-old to have, but one of her parents should have curtailed that expectation before it got out of control. Not the jerk. She got a free car. What's she complaining for? Seriously ungrateful. I would love a new car at this age. With today's economy, she can sell the new car and buy an old car to use and put the rest in an investment or a savings account. Am I the jerk for not changing my tradition for my daughter-in-law and making things uncomfortable? I have a tradition that every June and December, on the first Saturday of the month, I make a traditional dish from my country for my family and friends. Everyone loves it, and it's a family recipe. My youngest son has been married to Wendy for 3 years, together one before. I didn't know her that well because they didn't live here. Wendy is a rising chef. In June, Wendy asked if she could help me make the dish, and I said yes. It was my biggest regret. She gave advice on all seasoning choices, and even though I said it's a family recipe, she kept giving her opinion. When that date passed, I made it clear that I would not like any more help, first and last time. She took it personally, and our relationship became uncomfortable. Last month, day 16, I received an invitation from my son and Wendy to go to their house because Wendy was going to make this dish. It was the first Sunday in December. To clarify, this dish is not something you can eat 2 days in a row, as it's heavy. Some sent me a message asking if mine would still happen. They know it's always the first Saturday, and I confirmed. On the 20th, I sent the formal invitation by message. My son called as soon as he received it, asking if it would be on the first Saturday, and I confirmed, and he started saying that people can't eat it 2 days in a row, and if I couldn't leave it for another week, because Wendy wanted to do it to get closer to the family. I said no, as it's my tradition, and despite finding their choice of date unpleasant, I won't stop them, but I will continue with the usual dates. He proceeded to say I'm making things uncomfortable, and a week later it wouldn't bother me, and used the coin her invite was before. I was perplexed and said that everyone knows it's the first Saturday of the month, including them, so it wouldn't change all my plans. Things got uncomfortable, of course, but I kept it because it's something that doesn't just involve me. Friends and family already conformed. So there was a party on Saturday with friends and family. He and Wendy didn't come. And on Sunday, I didn't go because I worked that day. Many didn't come, and those who did, few ate the food because they couldn't eat it twice. During the week, my son sent a message asking if it was worth it to have done that and upset her because it spoiled the moment that she wanted to have with our family. He stressed that I could have been the better person, but I preferred not to be. I don't think this attack is very fair, but I wanted an outside opinion. It was the best date for all of my family and friends in December as they get together before the festivities, for me too. Tradition that has been going on for 10 years. Not the jerk. It sounds like she took it personally when you didn't follow her professional opinion and wanted to upstage you on your own tradition. Not the jerk. This is a family tradition of 10 years. Traditions are important, and attempting to modify or change them is offensive. 2. She's clearly trying to upstage you to prove to the family that she can make this dish better. 3. Her choice of dates was passive-aggressive. 4. Your son is also a jerk for letting this happen. If Wendy clearly wants to get closer to the family, she can easily start her own tradition which doesn't conflict with yours. Not the jerk. Your daughter-in-law seems very pretentious. Instead of trying to be respectful of you and your recipes, she's decided she'd rather upstage you, in her eyes. Your son owes you an apology, and you need to make it clear to him that she is welcome to be a part of the family. She's not welcome to disrespect your family traditions and recipes just because of her profession. Karen is manipulating my fiancé. Now he's dumping me. My fiancé is a single dad to Summer, who's 15. Summer has an autoimmune disease, and her mom isn't in the picture. Her dad spoils her rotten because of this. If dinner's already done, but Summer wants something else, he orders it for her because she gets cravings. She doesn't do any chores around the house, and I'm not allowed to ask her for help with anything. If she's being a brat, he excuses it because her medicines cause mood swings, and she can demand all of his attention whenever she wants it. Summer goes to one of those year-round schools, so instead of a 3-month summer break, they get like a month in the summer and they split the other 2 months up throughout the rest of the year. Because of this, she has a 4-week winter break. Summer was supposed to spend the first week of winter break on vacation with her friend and her mom. It was okay at first. I enjoyed spending time with my fiancé without her interrupting us every 10 minutes, but she still called when she woke up, before she went to bed, and every few hours in between. She constantly complained that she missed him. This was the first time she's been away from him since her mom left. On day 4, we got a call from her friend's mom. Summer wasn't feeling well and wanted to go home. I answered the phone the first time, and I asked the mom if she had a fever. Was she throwing up, or was she actually sick? The mom said no fever or throwing up, but she's just tired and says that she wants to go home. I told her to tell Summer to stick it out and call us if she actually gets sick. Summer decided to call her dad, say she didn't feel good, and that I said she couldn't come home. He didn't even give me a chance to explain myself before kicking me out of the house and starting the 4-hour drive to the friend's cabin. When they got home, he told me he needs to rethink our relationship. I told him Summer is manipulating him now like she always does, and listed examples of her using her illness to get what she wants with her dad. He told me not to contact him for the next few weeks while he thinks about if he really wants to marry me and hasn't spoken to me since. Am I the jerk for saying Summer is manipulative? You're the jerk. Summer doesn't need a reason to come home. If she wanted to come home because she wanted to sleep in her own bed, that is valid. Also, autoimmune disease can be debilitating, and there's not enough info here to know if she is actually just being a brat or if you are being a jerk. But based off the rest of your post, I'm going with the latter. It's wild that you feel entitled to gatekeep when someone else's kid is allowed to come back to their home. You're not looking like the step-parent material. I think rethinking this marriage will be in the best interest of everyone involved. Edit, because people make excuses like this woman didn't know what she signed up for. Are y'all on like 90-day finance or something? Cause I'm confused how you could have been together more than 90 days and not realize this was not gonna work out with how much vitriol you have for his daughter. OP is a fairy tale villain type of stepmother. You're the jerk. You're the jerk. Are you modeling your approach to being a stepmother from Disney? You're the jerk. Whether or not she's spoiled, it's not on you to decide if Summer can come home or not. You're not the parent, and you didn't make that decision based on parenting or helping the kid, but just because you didn't want her around. You're dating a man with a kid and not the mother around. You're not always going to be the center of his attention. You need to grow up. You're the jerk, both for calling her manipulative and for telling Summer to stick it out when she's sick. Clearly, you prefer that this kid not be around. I enjoyed spending time with my fiance without her interrupting us. He's a dad. They're a package deal. You guys are not compatible, and honestly, your actions and attitude are unforgivable. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. I found my girlfriend cuddling with her male best friend. I've been dating my girlfriend for 6 months now, and I wanted to surprise her on her birthday, which was this month. So I talked to another friend of hers where they were supposed to have a birthday party for her. I coordinated with her, but my flight was delayed and I reached there at 3 a.m. in the morning. I texted her friend and asked her to keep my girlfriend away from the door so I could sneak in. When I got there, her friend met me outside and gave me a look. At that time, I just thought she was tired, so I asked her where my girlfriend was, and she answered in the upstairs bedroom. She then put her hands on my shoulder and said, "All the best." Again, I thought it was weird, but I was excited to see my girlfriend, so I brushed it off. Anyways, I ran upstairs and I found my girlfriend cuddling with her best friend, who's a dude. They were in deep sleep, and I was so shocked that I ran out of there. Her friend saw me and said that she was sorry. I got a cab and I went back to my place. My girlfriend has been calling me ever since, but I blocked her everywhere. I don't know what to do next. Should I talk to her or just chalk it up to a lesson learned and move on? What's the best way forward from here? I'm so confused, so some help would be appreciated. Thank you. If they were truly just platonic, her roommate would not have handled it this way. She sent you up to save you the pain of this relationship continuing as your girlfriend is a cheater. Better for you to find out what she's like now rather than later. You dodged a major bullet, and while it may hurt right now, it will heal faster than letting it fester. So get over her and enjoy your life. You'll find someone better eventually. No need to doubt yourself over her. You sound super insecure. I cuddle with guy friends all the time, and if a boyfriend ever had a problem with that, I'd dump him. Instead of actually talking to her about it like an adult, you throw a fit. I think she's the one dodging the bullet, and you should therapy for your insecurities. Just because a girl cuddles with a guy friend does not mean that she's cheating on you. My husband just admitted to having an affair and getting someone else pregnant. My husband and I got married 3 years ago. When I was a teenager, I was told that due to medical complications, I may never be able to have kids. But after 2 years of trying and fertility treatments, I'm now halfway through my pregnancy with our miracle baby. Unfortunately, because of some complications, I had to cut back on my hours at work. It's very physical. My husband offered to pick up more hours to compensate, so he's been working a lot more the past 2 months and coming home later. I couldn't see that anything was amiss. Things were the same as they'd always been. He always brings home flowers, food, and things for the baby, coffee. He's always sending me thoughtful and loving texts throughout the day. The gaps where he was unreachable were explainable. But this morning, he set me down and gave me news that rocked me. He told me that he's been having an affair for the past 6 weeks and that his affair partner just found out that she's pregnant. He says that if she decides to keep the baby, she's going to raise it by herself and that they mutually agreed to end the relationship already. He wants to make things right. I don't know how things can ever be made right again. He just wants to move on from what he's calling his transgression. How do I ever forgive him? How do you deal with the unthinkable? How do I learn to live with the idea that my child's sibling might be out there somewhere someday? Most importantly, how do I learn to move on like he wants me to? Edit. I have an OB appointment for unrelated medical reasons tomorrow, at which I will make sure to request extensive testing. I have plans to meet with a lawyer on Monday. I'm talking to my sister to see if I can stay with her. My relationships with much of my family are not good, but I have a pretty positive relationship with her. I will not be seeking other options other than having my baby due to being pretty far along, and I've been told in the past I would not conceive. Regardless of what my husband has done, I love my baby. Edit 2. I saw my OB on Friday and will hopefully have some test results. Fingers crossed everything's negative within the next few days. I'll meet up with my lawyer tomorrow and go from there. My sister advised me to stay in the house that my husband and I co-own until I talk to a lawyer. This has been such an emotionally harrowing time for me. He's acting like everything is normal. All I want to do is sleep. I keep telling myself that it'll all be over soon. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't be okay having a baby with a man who just abandoned one. OP. I keep coming back to this. It sounds like she's on the fence about the pregnancy, which is ultimately 100% her choice. But the ease with which he's willing to take the stance of just forgetting the whole thing happened is hard for me. I'm more than halfway through my pregnancy, 23 weeks, so I'm in a different position. I was thinking the exact same thing. I'm not getting that he has any fear of losing you. Why? Either he thinks you're easy to control or not that bright, or desperate to stay his wife. Which is it? Why isn't he begging you to stay with him? Why does he feel you'll just go along with forgetting that he cheated on you? OP. I think he knows that my initial reaction was going to be that, yes, we could fix things, or I would agree to make things right. I think he knows that I have so much invested, emotionally, in this relationship. He is my first real love, my first, well, everything really, and that I'm more likely to fight for what we have than to give it up. Even I'm surprised at how conflicted I feel. Update. First off, she decided not to keep her baby, which was confirmed to me by her. Talking to her was really weird, and she didn't answer a lot of questions that I had for her. This is a person who knows me and has met me a number of times, and I just don't get it. The motivations on both sides don't make any sense to me, and I don't know if they ever will. It helped to learn that there was no romantic feelings, but it was still confusing, especially since I perceive my husband and I to have a healthy love life, and I don't get what's fun or exciting about leaving the boundaries of your marriage. We are in therapy, separately and together. Going separately is helping me to sort out a lot of my own feelings, but I think that going together is essentially one way or another as well. He has been cooperative and participating in therapy. I'm hoping that we can figure out at least some of these things. We've had a lot of conversations about why it won't be easy for me to just forgive this and why I need answers and changes in behavior, and I do feel that I've been heard. Divorce is not completely off the table, but it's a hard situation to be in, especially in a vulnerable state like being pregnant. I've consulted with a lawyer and made my parameters clear to him, but for now, I want to try to work things out. I know this isn't the update that a lot of people hoped for, but for me, I think this is the right choice. Again, divorce is not off the table. What is off the table right now is trying to make a decision that will affect my life greatly when I'm already in an extremely vulnerable position. Update. 6 months ago, my life was the best it had ever been. My husband and I had just found out we were pregnant. Our relationship seemed happy and strong as ever, just on top of the world. So I found out that shortly before we got married, he had had another affair that I never found out about before. I was devastated beyond devastation. He said some things to me that I will never forget or be able to forgive. So I went into preterm labor at 26 weeks, which they were able to stop, but after 4 weeks, I'm still having a lot of complications and I may have to deliver the baby early. My family has been nasty and uncooperative since we fought. He hasn't come to see me in the hospital even once in 4 weeks. My life was incredible before all of this, before I knew about all of this. I wish I could go back to that. The time I was petty during my boss's divorce. Around the end of 2017, my boss's wife went through a midlife crisis and decided to have an affair and move out of their house. Divorce proceedings initiated shortly after. In the following March, there was an incident between the two of them that necessitated court intervention, and for them to meet some requirements as a result. One of those requirements was her being required to walk around the house and make a list of all the items that were hers. Cue pettiness on her part. Boss's lawyer stated that, "In my 20 years of law practice, I have never seen a list this petty. Half of the dish towels, half of the paper plate holders, half of the pots, the curtains in the lounge, etc. You get the idea. She made sure that she got half of everything." However, my boss did not allow her to come into the house herself to pack, as she had spent the previous 5 months stealing out of the house at every opportunity, and he didn't trust her to pack only her belongings. So he made me do it. Small company, nothing else really for me to be doing. This is where the pettiness comes in. She requested 1 saucepan. I shook both, and one had a loose handle. She got that one. She asked for the curtains in the lounge. She didn't ask for the curtain hooks, so I took all of those out. Half of the dish towels? She got all the grouty mismatched ones, not the nice red set. Half of the containers in the storage room? Never specified she wanted the contents, so she got empty containers. I did this for the entire list, making sure that I was as petty as possible when packing up the house. The result. Part 1. Once she took all of her stuff, she sent a very long letter via her lawyer, stating that what she received was not what was listed in her belongings. We painstakingly went through the entire list, explaining that she received exactly what was written on her list, and we couldn't possibly be at fault since she wasn't specific enough. Their divorce was finalized at the end of 2019. Occasionally, we will still get the stray email saying we need to return items to her that weren't provided back in 2018. It makes my petty heart burn bright, knowing that she tried to be a jerk about taking things, and I turned it back on her and ruined it by being extra petty. Edit. I did not behave like this in a vacuum. I did not do over a kindly woman that I didn't know. No, I'm not dating or married to my boss. I can't believe I have to say this, but not every woman in a divorce is the good party. Divorce brings out the worst in people. I'm my boss's personal assistant, and it's my job to read his emails. I won't be responding to any further comments, mostly for my own sanity. I've answered most of the questions in other comments, and I want to go outside and touch grass for a bit. You need to leave my car alone. If you say so. This is not my story, but my friend Adam's. Adam is a retired police officer, and this takes place in the mid-90s, back when Adam was a cop, maybe a year or 2 into his service. At the time this story takes place, a fire bug had targeted several businesses over the course of a 3-month period. The fires were put out, but they were getting bigger and bigger, causing thousands of dollars in damage. Everyone was on edge, and the police were patrolling the area every night to try and catch Mr. Firebug. On this particular night, in the middle of February, Adam and his partner, Rick, drew the short stick and thus were assigned to patrol part of the area. While on patrol, he notices a classic Mercedes-Benz pulling up to a house and a familiar lady dressed in a thick fur coat steps out. He groans. It's the wife of a local business owner that every officer in this town has had the displeasure to ticket for various parking and traffic violations. It would have been fine if she were a nice lady or something, but no. Her 3 default sentences were, "Don't you know who I am? Where's your manager?" and "I'll have your job." Seriously, she was a Karen before Karens were even a thing. Rick points out to Adam that Karen had parked right by a fire hydrant, par for the course. Adam gets ready and steps out of the squad car. "Good evening, Mrs. Karen," Adam says. "What are you doing here?" Karen bellowed. Adam guessed that's the Karen's version of hello. "Working the beat. You do know you're parked next to a fire hydrant." "So?" Karen said. "I'm suggesting you move it before I write you a ticket. I'm not in the mood for extra paperwork tonight." "Listen, you need to leave my car alone, or I'll have your job." With that, Karen storms off to the house, goes inside and slams the door. Adam thought, "If you say so," and proceeded to check the outside of the car for any more violations, and wishing that being a jerk was a federal offense. As he's putting the ticket under the windshield wiper, the call everyone's been dreading comes on the radio. A fire alarm has been triggered. The address? Right across the street. Adam looks over at the building and can see a faint orange glow in the window on the second floor. He reports the glow. He and Rick get ready in case Mr. Firebug decides to cross their path. Several officers arrive and set a perimeter around the building as the glow gets brighter and brighter. Unfortunately, by the time the fire department gets there, flashover happens and all of the windows on the second floor get blown out. It was so hot that Adam felt sweat form on his face. The fire department needs to get the hoses set up, but Karen's car is in the way. Using safety hammers, they break the windows and run the hoses through, getting everything set up in record time. During all of the chaos, Karen comes out and she sounds like a banshee that had swallowed an air raid siren. She runs over and tries unhooking the hose from the hydrant. "What are you doing? My car is ruined." It took 2 officers to restrain her and bark at her to go inside and let everyone do their jobs. She actually listened and returned inside. Adam spent the rest of his shift helping with the fire and investigation. It was close to dawn when he returned to the station to finish up. All he wanted was to go home and crawl into bed. That's when his supervisor calls Rick and him over and reports that Karen reported several $1,000s worth of damage. Not only had our windows been broken, but water had gotten in and froze because it was the middle of February. The supervisor asked them what happened and they reported everything. Fortunately, the dash cam caught a recording of the event. The supervisor shook her head, laughed, and said, "Well, you had nothing to do with the car getting damaged, so I consider this closed." A few weeks later, they caught the firebug, a different business owner who was trying to commit insurance fraud. He figured that if several other buildings caught fire, nobody would think he was responsible for burning down his own business. Unfortunately, Karen never did seem to learn her lesson, so she was back to racking up tickets and being a thorn in the police side. She did have to pay for the damages and the ticket that Adam gave her. Am I the jerk for asking my wife for a paternity test because she cheated a few years ago? Me, 32, and my wife, who's 30, have been married for 8 years now. 3 years ago, she cheated with a friend of hers, and after some time, we managed to reconcile. She found out she was pregnant a few days ago, and while my initial reaction was happiness, then the thought that it could be someone else's crawled into my mind. The thought, "She's done it before," popped into my head. When I asked her to take a test and explain my reasoning, we had a huge fight. She said that I shouldn't hold that against her after all the work we've done to repair our relationship. I still feel strongly about the paternity test. Update. Things to clear up. After my wife cheated, we had counseling, and it's been a hard road for both of us, but we managed to build something new, so to speak. Also, we weren't actively trying for a baby. We both wanted kids, but since she cheated on me, that wasn't something we thought we should do for a while, at least not before we reconciled. Also, I tried to be as tactful when I brought up the paternity test, but I think tactfulness can only go so far when essentially accusing your wife of potentially cheating on you. It went like this. "Honey, we need to talk about the baby." "What's wrong?" "Look, I need some reassurance. I love you, but I can't just shake this thought off my mind." "What thought?" "I'm worried that it's not mine." After that, things got louder and we had a fight. Update. After our fight, I slept in the other room, and we didn't really talk for a while. We waved goodbye when we went to work, and we had small talk about our days, but didn't really address what we fought about. She eventually came to me and apologized for her reaction. She says she understands why I asked her for the test, and she got mad because she thought the whole cheating thing was over and we wouldn't need to ever bring it up again. She said she was mad because this made her realize that this is something that will always be part of our relationship's history, and it reminded her of how much of an effect this had on me and how much she hurt me. She told me she was mad at herself. She says she hates the fact that she gave me a good reason to ask for it. We simply hugged it out after that. She agreed to take a paternity test, but from some research that we've done, it seems to be a bit early for one, but we'll schedule it later on. I'll be honest, I think the test is just a formality for now, but I still want it for my own peace of mind. I do love my wife and want us to start building our family. What are you going to do if it's not yours? If the kid isn't mine, then I'll leave. I made my mind up on that before I even asked her for the test. Update. So we waited a few weeks before the test and the results came back in. And yes, the baby is in fact mine. Besides that, there's not much to tell. My wife has been very accommodating and has not gotten angry at me over this again. We're both very excited to be parents. Also, to those of you who asked me to wait until the baby is born, how am I supposed to do that? Not only do you think I should lie to my wife, but also you expect my wife to not notice the birth certificate lacks my signature? This is sad. He still can't fully trust his wife. The baby will make it more complicated. I give it another 2 years. Excited to be parents? This whole relationship sounds like a ticking time bomb. It will probably go off again. Good luck to your kid. No man is ever the jerk for asking for a paternity test. They should never be put in the position to have to ask. A paternity test should be standard. The biggest part of this is it just shows that no matter how much counseling, how much time, and how much work you do to repair a relationship after cheating, it never ever completely goes away. That little voice is always back there to remind you that they have proven to you they will cheat, and since it has happened before, it could happen again. I was told that our company's Christmas party's theme is ugly sweater when it wasn't. I work as a preschool teacher. My company has about 20 people, counting internships, and hosted a Christmas party at a local restaurant yesterday. I've worked there since May. Weeks ago, I was told that the theme for the party is ugly sweater, which is fantastic since I really enjoy wearing those. But to top it off, I ordered a knitted dress in the style of an ugly sweater and some thermo thighs. I was excited and even showed some people screenshots of the dress, to which they all responded positively. Yesterday evening, I arrived at the restaurant and was greeted by a very formal office look among my coworkers. Small black or red dresses, formal jackets, skirts, white button-down shirts, high heels, and me wearing my knitted dress in the middle of it all. I felt underdressed at best until I tried to ask a new colleague about the dress code. She started working just 3 weeks ago, and she told me it was business, but people assured her everyone knew, so she didn't need to write it out in our WhatsApp group, where I could have seen it. Through snippets I got from many of my conversations, I learned that only I, the one who wears ugly sweaters to work, was told about this theme, and one colleague literally asked my boss if she doesn't pay me enough for nice clothes. On Monday, work will start again, and I have no idea on where to find the courage to go. My husband wants our baby's name to match the names of our other kids. My husband, Jack, fake name, and I have been together for 4 years, and we're expecting a baby girl due in February. My husband already has 2 boys from his previous marriage who are named after fictional characters that he and his previous wife were big fans of, and for the sake of this post, I'll name them Chandler and Joey. When we found out we were expecting a girl, he suggested we pick a name that is also from the show and suggested Rachel. I vetoed it because I wasn't a fan of the name. It's not actually Rachel, so don't be offended. Rachel's of the subreddit. He told me he wasn't as big of a fan of the other names on the show, so I told him it didn't have to be from the show. But he believed that since the boys were both named after characters from the show, it would make sense to name our daughter after someone from the show too. I told him I don't like the name Rachel, but if he thought of a different character whose name I liked, I would consider it. He said he probably wouldn't, but fine, and I thought that was that. Come to today. I check my Facebook while on break at work, and I see that my mother-in-law has posted, Baby Rachel, due February 2024, and I hit the roof. I considered leaving work because I was so angry that I managed to finish my shift without hurting anybody. When I got home, Jack was already there, so I asked him why his mom thinks the baby is going to be named Rachel, and he told me that his mom asked about it and it was the name that he wanted. He said he thought I would learn to love it, and if he told his mom, there wouldn't be any way to change it now. I have a tendency to avoid contacting people when they're wrong, so he knew I would absolutely hate telling his mom that Rachel wasn't the name. He also said that the baby might feel left out if she's not named after a character from the show. I think after this, I hate the name Rachel even more. I don't know why he can't understand that I don't like the name, and I don't want to pick it. I looked at the characters from the show as well after our initial conversation, and there were some names I actually liked. So Reddit, how do I get my husband to agree to a different name? How do I get him to stop telling people our baby's name is going to be something it's not? How do I tell my husband's family, plus everyone that saw my mother-in-law's Facebook post, that the name he told them is not the name? You need to woman up and tell everyone yourself. Stop letting others walk all over you. It's now your job to stand up and protect your kid. And be careful with the birth notice they give you from the hospital. That's all a married man needs to register his child. So if you're worried he'll take the paper and go alone to the registrar and name your daughter Rachel, then make sure he doesn't get his hands on that bit of paper. Also, personally, I would post under mother-in-law's post, "Lol, that's not the name we've chosen," and leave it at that. Am I the jerk for breaking up with my pregnant girlfriend because I don't want to be a father? I, 25 male, had been with my ex, 23 female, for a little over 3 months. I always took all the precautions necessary. She was on birth control. I wanted to avoid having a baby. I've known for a long time that I don't want to have any kids of my own. I find them annoying, and they would severely limit my ability to do things I enjoy, traveling, outdoor stuff, etc. Unfortunately for me, she's now pregnant. The first thing I did was suggest not having it. I offered to pay for her flight and hotel, and I told her I'd be happy to come with her to get it done. I have a stable job and I make good money, so it wouldn't be too much of a hit for me. She works as a receptionist and doesn't make a lot, so I figured it would be better for me to pay. That's when she told me she was hoping to keep it and that she wanted me to help her raise the kid as its father. I have no intention of being a father. Beyond just my dislike of kids, I'm not ready for that. I made it very clear that I didn't want the baby, but she kept insisting that I'd have a change of heart once it's born and to just try it out. After a long exchange, I told her that if she intended to keep the baby, I would not act as a father. I broke up with her and told her that I would pay child support once it's born, but that I expect her to respect my wishes and keep the kid away from me. Since then, she's been frantically texting me, begging me to come back and telling me she'll forgive me. She sent me voicemails crying. It does hurt to see, but I haven't responded. The other day, she texted me saying how she can't raise the kid alone and how I'm basically forcing her to not have it by just leaving. She ended the text begging me to talk again. I certainly feel crappy. I really liked her and we had a good relationship before this, but I just don't want to be a father. I'm already bitter about the fact that I'll have to pay child support for 18 years, which will somewhat limit me financially. I also feel it isn't right for a parent who doesn't want their kid to be involved. I just end up taking it out on them, which I feel isn't right. With all this said, I came here to ask, am I the jerk? I certainly feel like one, but I also stand by what I said. Edit. On the topic of having a vasectomy, I tried. I met with a doctor last year and asked about getting one done, but he refused and said every doctor he knows won't do it until I'm at least 30. Update 1. I've hired one of the better family court lawyers in my state. She has someone representing her pro bono. It has been made clear to my ex and her representative that she's not to contact me personally and that all contact will go through my lawyer from now on. A paternity test is scheduled for next Wednesday. I don't know how long it will take to get the results, but the test is happening. If the kid is mine, we will go to court to determine child support payments and will set up the process for me to sign away my rights. On providing emotional support and getting back together with the ex. I don't want to give her emotional support and lead her on. If I'm around, she'll think I plan to get back together and be a present father, which I don't want. She should know I don't want the kid. That way, she's more likely to go through with not having it or adoption. I also don't want to be present for the birth for similar reasons. Plus, I'm pretty certain that even if I did change my mind on the kid, I wouldn't want to be with her. She expects me to get back together with her to raise the kid. But if I did end up seeing the kid and wanting her, I'd have to go through some annoying legal procedure to try and secure joint custody or something. This is a mess in so many ways that it isn't worth suffering through. I'm still certain I don't want the kid, but if I suddenly changed my mind to want the kid and then didn't get any custody, that would be pretty depressing. I'd rather just stay unattached and deal with any regrets I have later. About my parents, yes, they want grandkids. They've been hounding me ever since I turned 20 about when I'm going to give them grandkids. I've already told them I don't want kids, and my sister's not going to be having any, so they're disappointed at this point. If they found out about the kid and that I was leaving, they would be furious, so I'm just not telling them. About how I'll feel in the future, I honestly cannot say 100%. I know that right now I 100% don't want kids, and I'm going off that feeling to assume how I'll feel in the future will be the same. Everyone lives with some level of regret, so I've come to peace with the idea that if I end up regretting this, I'll just have to move on and live with that like everyone else. If for some reason I felt regret, I wouldn't try to contact the kid. I'd just keep it to myself and keep chugging along like usual. If the kid does find me one day, I'll just be honest depending on how I'm feeling. Either, I was 25 and I didn't want kids, and I still don't, sorry. Or, I was 25 and I thought I didn't want kids. I wasn't ready. It's been one of the biggest regrets of my life and I'm sorry. Depending on how I'm feeling, most likely the former. I don't know what gave you the impression that I've softened to the idea of having kids. I still firmly don't want any. I just feel pity for the kid, cause it's not really their fault. I don't exactly feel good about leaving the kid on a moral level, but on a more personal of what is best for me, I feel very confident in leaving. It's certainly a selfish decision, but I've been upfront with the fact that I'm a selfish person. I feel bad about it, but I'm putting myself and my own personal needs first in this situation by doing what I think is best for me. I feel for this woman, but this is a 3-month relationship, and she's devastated that this man doesn't want to be a father? It would be so much worse having him around when he's going to be angry, bitter, and resentful. Everything about this sucks, but talking him into it is the last thing she will want in 5 years. She sounds completely delusional, as she hasn't heard anything that he said. They only dated 3 months. He broke up with her, and she thinks he's going to propose? Every time there's a post from a mom whose partner very clearly has no interest in being a dad, but she plans to stay with him anyway, for the kids, people correctly tell her what a terrible idea that is. But here's this guy doing everything in his power to prevent that exact scenario from playing out, and people are losing their minds. Being raised by a single parent who loves and is committed to the kid is so much better for them than being raised in a 2-parent household where one of the parents does not want to be there. I was a single mom at 20, and it was so much better than the co-parenting crap that some of my friends and family members had and still have going on. She'll get the child support from him. That's more than what most single parents get. My own kid's biological father never paid a cent. She'll manage, if she can get over the delusion that biological dad wants anything to do with her and the baby. The first 3 years are kind of horrible, but they are with or without a partner. But it gets easier and easier as time goes on, and I haven't had any regret of my decision to keep my baby. Am I the jerk for refusing to buy my girlfriend's new book? So my girlfriend, we lived together, wrote, sold, and published her first book. I think that it's amazing and I'm so proud of her. I believe that I was very supportive. I participated in beta reading, had my hand in text editing. I did some changes in every single page, a lot of suggesting and editing. I do not want to undermine what she did, but I really did spend a lot of time on this as well. And I gave her a bunch of praise and critique. We celebrated when she sold the book to the publisher and all, so I don't believe that I was unsupportive. However, she got very angry today because I refused to buy a physical copy of the book. I said that I just don't get this. We live together. What? Her argument is, we live in a small country and every copy sold matters and I should show support. I replied that the reader should buy her book, not her partner. Anywho, am I the jerk? It's up to you, but I'm leaning towards you're the jerk. Personally, I would buy my partner's book and get the very first personally signed copy to keep and proudly show it off, but you do you. Will it break the bank to show her support? Will it hurt you to buy it? It's a pretty big deal to get signed with a publisher. Congrats to your girlfriend. I wish her all the success. Not only that, I would buy additional copies to give to friends and family to show them how proud you are of her. He's definitely the jerk. Any normal person in a relationship would get a copy and have their girlfriend sign it. The dude's missing the point. You're the jerk. It's a shame she has to ask you to buy it. You're the jerk for not doing this without asking. You're the jerk. It's a gesture of support. She doesn't care if you never read it again. She only cares that you believe in her enough to buy a copy. There's no point in giving someone flowers either, as they just die after a couple of days. It's about the gesture and what it means to the person you bought them for. If I were you, I'd be buying copies for friends and family to show my support, but that's just me. Not the jerk. Pressuring your loved ones to buy a book you wrote is not mature at all. She's acting like a spoiled brat, and you can either enable her delusion, the way these Reddit losers want you to, or you can hold your ground and be a man. If anything, she should be gifting you a signed copy instead of expecting you to buy it yourself. No authors become successful by convincing their loved ones to buy their books. It's pathetic, honestly, and I'm not surprised at these idiots shaming you for not being a pushover. Am I the jerk for wanting to break up with my girlfriend after her ex's funeral? Plus updates. So my girlfriend and I have been together for about 4 years. She used to be close friends with her ex, however, he tried to make a move on her while she and I were together, so she cut off their friendship. They knew each other for about 10 years. They were high school sweethearts and stayed together throughout college. They broke up because he did not want to have kids. He passed recently, and my girlfriend was invited to the funeral. While I wasn't happy, so to speak, to see my girlfriend cry about this guy, I swallowed my emotions and offered my full support. She asked me to come with her. Here's where things got messy. She kept talking about how she wishes they never broke up in the first place, and that she never met anyone who she loved as much as him. She made a speech about how she says that if things had been different, they'd be a happy family with kids. I had to force myself not to say anything then. Now we're back home, and she hasn't said anything about what she said. I'm so close to just leaving, but I just don't know if she only said that out of grief. Update. It's been a couple of days, and my post got a lot of attention. It's been a week since the funeral itself, and I've been talking to some friends, as well as reading comments on my last post. Truth be told, I've been hesitant to talk to my girlfriend about this because she's still depressed. She's not talking to me at all, and I've been taking care of everything around our place. She's just been laying in bed. I've tried to talk to her, but she just shuts me out. I've been reflecting on our past relationship, and I realized a couple of things. My girlfriend was never as passionate with me as she was with her ex. She never did anything as romantic or thoughtful for me when compared to her ex. For example, she's never gone traveling for more than 3 days with me, but she traveled often with her ex, sometimes for years. It's not like I haven't offered. I was simply told to get over it and that each relationship is different, and people said crap like, if she wanted to be with her ex, she would be. Something also to note is that some of you actually pointed my attention to another post, one that's about a girl going to her ex's funeral. I read that post, and I don't know if it's actually my girlfriend or not. Some of the details are different, like our age. We're both 30. Also, I never said anything about breaking up with her for going to the funeral. I wasn't exactly happy to see her mourn the guy who wanted to hook up with her while she was with me, but I didn't actually say anything. Now, that post admitted that she actually cheated. I thought about this for a second, but it doesn't matter. Because if she cheated or not, I already broke up with her. I did have a talk with her, and she refused to at first by not responding to me. But when I told her I was leaving, she finally said something. I basically told her that I feel like crap ever since she said those things at the funeral. How I feel like she would rather be with her ex than me, that I felt like her second choice. She started to yell at me, calling me selfish, and that she's lost one of the most important people in her life, and I shouldn't make this about me. I was too tired to try to yell back. My things were already packed up. I'm staying with my parents for a while. Our lease doesn't expire for a few months, so I don't know what she's planning to do. I don't know what to do now. I thought I was going to marry this girl someday and have kids with her, but she wanted someone else all this time. I appreciate the comments. I don't know what I'm going to do. Man, you're doing the right thing. You absolutely deserve someone who will love you as their first priority. I wish you all the best for your future. Not the jerk. I'm so sorry, brother. It's going to hurt a long while. Take your time and mourn the girl in the relationship you thought you had. One day, you will find a woman who makes you her priority, who really wants to be with you and loves only you. Then you will realize how lucky you were to have this happen to you. Keep your chin up, champ. For her to scream that she lost one of the most important people in her life really dodged a bullet. You're the jerk. Honestly, you sound pretty pathetic. Your girlfriend just lost someone that was very important in her life, and instead of worrying about her and her grieving, you make it all about you. Boo-hoo. Not sure if you've ever lost someone you were in a relationship with, but it brings up a lot of emotions, second thoughts, and what-if moments. This was her first love and high school sweetheart, so there's going to be a lot of reflecting and self-doubt over why they broke up. You can either hold it against her or understand it's part of the process she'll have to go through. Do realize if you break up with her now, you'll be a hero to a lot of randoms on Reddit, but most of the people that you know in real life are going to judge you based on breaking up with a person that's in a state of mourning. Well, the most important thing is, he'll be a hero to himself because he's feeling miserable just by being with her. She is absolutely disgusting. She still has feelings for her ex, and she's obviously not over him. That's a battle you can never win, so why should he stay in the relationship? He's treating himself good now. He will be hurt over this, but in the end, he will hopefully find a girlfriend who treats him better and loves only him. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his girlfriend? Well, ex-girlfriend now. Please let us know. Always remember that there's over 8 billion people in the world. If you look hard enough, you'll find someone who will show you the respect that you deserve. Am I the jerk for telling my husband, "I told you so," and laughing when we got the paternity test results? I, 27 female, have been married to my husband, 28 male, for 2 years and gave birth to our daughter 5 weeks ago. I'll try to keep this short so I don't waste your time with details. What happened was that our daughter came out with blonde hair and pale blue eyes, while my husband and I both have brown hair and brown eyes. My husband freaked out at this and refused to listen to my explanation that sometimes babies are born with lighter hair and eyes that get darker over time. He demanded a paternity test and threatened to divorce me if I didn't comply, so I did. After my daughter and I got home from the hospital, my husband went to stay at his parents' house for the first 3 weeks to get some space from me while I recovered, and he told them what was happening. My mother-in-law called and informed me that if the paternity test revealed that the baby wasn't his, she would do anything within her power to make sure that I was taken to the cleaners during the divorce. I had my sister to lean on and help me take care of the baby during this time. We got the results back yesterday, and my husband came home to view them with me. I was on the couch in the living room, so he sat next to me and we started to read the results. They showed that he was the father, and my husband had this shocked, kind of mortified look on his face with his eyes wide as he stared at it. I couldn't help but say, "I told you so," and started laughing at the way he looked. My husband snapped out of his shock and got mad at me for laughing at him. We argued for a bit, which was mainly him yelling at me, before my sister came downstairs and my husband shut up. After that, my husband went back to his parents' house to clear his head, and 2 to 3 hours later, my mother-in-law called to scold me about laughing in his face because apparently it was kicking him while he was down. She's also left a couple of nasty texts, essentially saying the same thing this morning. I don't think I'm the jerk, but I'd like some outsider perspective on this. So he was down by finding out that he was mistaken and you didn't actually get pregnant with someone else's baby? Tough luck, fella. He owes you a massive apology or 3. Sorry about your husband and in-laws. This is insane. He abandoned you postpartum and forced you to take care of a newborn by yourself while healing. My husband and I also have a baby that looks nothing like either of us. She came out with strawberry blonde hair and blue eyes, while we both have brown hair and brown eyes. We just said, "Wow, genetics are crazy," and moved on. I'm so sorry for what you're going through while being freshly postpartum with a newborn. Not the jerk. He was a jerk, but I personally believe paternity tests should be routine and only opted out from. That would save a whole ton of issues like this. Not at all. Women deserve to know that their husbands think that they're cheaters, so we don't get stuck staying with them. And men deserve to know that their women aren't cheaters that trick them into raising other people's kids. Mandatory paternity tests would only be a bad thing if you're trying to get away with paternity fraud. Am I the jerk for solving my ex-girlfriend's problem without her permission? We broke up over this. Basically, my girlfriend, now my ex, lives in an apartment building where she shares her floor with just one other tenant, but the dude lets his big dog sleep in the hallway between their front doors. The dog does what dogs do. It thinks the hallway is its territory, so it defends it. It never bit anyone, but it would usually growl and look aggressive whenever my ex or myself walked past it to go to her apartment. My ex would not shut up about how much she hated that dog being there. She's squeamish around dogs at the best of times. But the dog's owner is a massive-looking, tatted-up dude, and she'd just keep whining that she didn't dare speak up to him because he scared her. I talked to the dude a couple of times here and there, and while he looks dangerous, he seemed to me like a chill guy. So I kept telling her to just talk to him, and I was sure he would understand. But my ex was adamant, absolutely not, because she was afraid he'd get angry at her and retaliate somehow. Well, 3 days ago, I was sick of hearing her complaining about the dog again and again. I just got up, walked to the neighbor's door, rang the bell. He answered. I asked if he could avoid leaving the dog in the common area because it makes my girlfriend uncomfortable. And his reaction was, "Oh gosh, I didn't realize. My apologies. It will never happen again." Boom, solved. Back when I got back to my girlfriend's apartment, she was enraged with me. Said she wanted an apology from me for helping her without her permission, and that she thought I was putting her at risk because she lived next to the guy. And what if he was a secret psycho, and by telling him to keep his dog indoors, I made her the next one he goes after? I tried to be patient, but she was screaming at the top of her lungs and completely freaking out, and not listening to me telling her that her neighbor is a normal dude who would have removed his dog earlier if she had politely asked him to. No, she just needed to screech at me about her paranoid fears of making an enemy out of her neighbor and how I'm the one who started the war, but she's the one who will be a victim of it. I repeatedly told her that there is no war, no conflict, no nothing, and that she should just calm down. But she screamed at me that she never wants to talk to me again until I sincerely apologize. I believe I have nothing to apologize for, so I guess we'll never talk again. I've heard earlier today from my ex's sister that my ex is waiting for me to call and apologize, and that I'm apparently a pig for not doing it yet. I told her that I have nothing to apologize for, and the sister blew up on me, saying that I absolutely need to apologize after all I did to my ex. Never got the chance to even ask her what those horrible things I supposedly did are, because she hung up on me. I used to be good friends with ex's family, and I hate to lose not only her, but them too. So, am I in the wrong for believing that I did nothing that requires apologizing for and being stubborn about that? Am I the jerk? I just don't understand what made him think it was okay for him to let his dog sleep in the hall of the apartments. That should just be common sense. Probably that no one complained, and as a dog lover, he assumed that no one would dislike the dog's presence. And probably he didn't realize how territorial his dog was being, as surely the dog didn't act like that towards him. On the way out, you should have rung the guy's doorbell and said, "My bad, she's good with the dog in the hall." Not the jerk. You, my friend, have dodged a bullet. That kind of irrational behavior is not a one-time occurrence. Not the jerk. I understand her fears because I met a seemingly harmless-looking neighbor who ended up being a jerk after my sister complained about his trash. Plus, it's scarier for a girl who lives alone. Am I the jerk for kicking my friend and her husband out for eating and wasting my food? I, 34 female, made the mistake of allowing my best friend, Mary, who's 33, and her husband, Carl, who's 27, and their 2 kids to crash at my place after showing up without being invited. She showed up for a visit and later complained that it was too late to drive back home, 5 hours. I hate having people over, and she has a history of being a moocher. However, we did have a great time, so in the end I was grateful for her visit, and it was raining. I agreed to let her spend the night safely at my place. I did not go crazy with accommodations because I didn't want her to get too comfortable, so I opened the sofa bed for them and went to sleep. My boyfriend went into the bathroom near midnight and woke me up looking angry and confused. He said Mary and her husband were eating all of our food in our kitchen. I immediately went there and found her by the dinner table with all of our trays of sushi laying around, while she was sampling it and handing it to her husband. The wastebasket was right next to them because he was taking a bite and spitting it into the trash if he didn't like it. My sushi sampler tray was left with just a few pieces, and most of my boyfriend's tray was thrown away by them without even asking my permission to eat it. They also cut a brand new and store-sealed artisan cake and opened juice cartons straight from the pantry, despite me having left juice in the refrigerator in case they wanted some. The garbage bin had lots of chewed rice. It looked like they had been chewing on it and just spitting it out into the trash. I found this especially infuriating as I left those dishes to the back of the fridge and inside 2 tightly knotted bags for privacy. I served them dinner. I showed her where the sandwich supplies could be found in case they needed anything. I don't understand why she wanted to take more than she was given. I also found a complete box of chocolates gifted by my boyfriend, emptied out, and an entire 6-pack of Coca-Cola all gone into the garbage. Her excuse was her wanting her husband to have a taste of nice things, because he's not familiar with sushi, and she's always talked about the food I like to buy. I immediately kicked her out. She begged, but it was 12 a.m. and said they would leave very early in the morning. I went to bed crying in anger. I woke them up at almost 4 a.m. She started clicking her tongue like a sleepy cartoon character, and her husband protested that it was too early. I pulled the sheets from him and had them leave. As clarification, they both have jobs, and shame on me for allowing her to come in because I've had to create boundaries with her multiple times because of showing up unannounced, playing the "I lost my wallet" game when the check comes at a restaurant, and constantly trying to stiff me with bills. She called me hours later, but I didn't pick up, so she left a message. She said I spoiled her Christmas because her intent was to come visit her family nearby, but having to go back home, they couldn't contact family members to ask them to let them in because it was too early. So she and her husband had a fight, and they drove back, and now he only wants to spend their 10-day vacation with his own family. She sent me another message a few hours later. She says that he's still very angry because he had to drive while groggy and that being sleepy causes him to be grouchy all day. She said he's so mad at her that he moved his stuff into the other bedroom. I don't know when she's lying, and her tears sounded really desperate. She's begging me to call him and talk to him, but I don't want to and I won't do it. I sent her a cash request for $500 to cover the sushi trays, the cake, and other foods plus replacements, also for inconveniencing me and for their night over. It sounds petty, but I'm still fuming. She whined and cried but paid for it, then said that because of me, her kids won't have Christmas. Not the jerk. They were chewing up your food and spitting it in the trash at midnight in your house? I wouldn't have let them stay until 4 a.m. I would have bounced them at midnight before they started gnawing on the walls. Goodness, they sound feral. Am I the jerk for referring to my cousins as my brothers in a post when I never refer to my stepbrothers that way? I, 18 male, have 3 stepbrothers through my dad: Blake, who's 20, Chris, who's 17, and Dave, who's 13. We are not close at all. Blake, Chris, and I aren't close because of a sort of mutual agreement, I guess. And I'm not that close with Dave because he was always following his brothers everywhere, as is to be expected. My stepbrothers lived primarily with their dad and his wife and spent every other weekend here at their mom's and my stepdad's, before Blake and Chris went out of state to uni. Now during Dave's every other weekend visits, it's just him and I. I used to want to be brotherly with my stepbrothers. I actually remember the moment it changed. I was 12 and their dad was taking them all to Florida on vacation, and I said something to Blake and Chris about wanting to go, and Chris responded that it was a brother's trip, only for brothers, so I can't go, and Blake laughed. That hurt, but something switched at that moment. I stopped caring. Since that day, when they are here, I coexist and generally try to make plans with my friends to stay away from home. If it wasn't a forced family thing by my dad and stepmom, I didn't hang out with my stepbrothers. Cut to the present day. We just aren't close. They come over for Thanksgiving to see their mom. I say hey and went to my room. Chris came in to talk to me to say that Dave was upset about my Instagram post. It was a picture of me and my cousins from last night and a caption about them being the best brothers. Truly, I didn't even know Dave had me on Instagram. I don't think the other two do, but I don't know. It was not a slight at my stepbrothers. I honestly wasn't thinking about them at all and told Chris that. Chris started talking about how the 4 of us are brothers, and I said we weren't. He said of course we are, and I was like, no we aren't, and I reminded him of how they excluded me growing up, his brother's trip comment, and us not being friends. He called me petty for holding on to grudges. He wanted me to apologize to Dave, and I told him I won't. We got into an argument with him insisting I apologize and move on. It ended with Chris leaving my room, saying this is why they never liked me, and I shouted back at him, my cousins like me, so I have all the brothers I need, which Dave heard. My stepbrothers left soon after, and then Blake texted me to ask to talk tomorrow and said Dave is really upset. Am I the jerk for calling my cousins my brothers in a public post that my stepbrothers could see? Should I have apologized and talked to Dave? Not the jerk. They asked, you gave them an explanation, which to be honest is really reasonable in my opinion, and they brushed off your feelings. They said, this is why we never liked you. There's probably some truth to that, and although your stepbrother is hurt, I would tell him, wow, imagine how I felt back then. It changed the dynamic of our relationship, and all of you saw it, but didn't seem to care then. But now you do? No, you care because my comment hurt your brother's feelings. Yet, if I was your brother, you would care about how you hurt me. This is just another example of how you don't see me as an actual brother. Update. So I talked to Chris today, which was surprising because I didn't think we would talk about what happened. Just sort of move on like we usually do and not acknowledge it. But Chris apologized and we talked, and specifically about Dave. And you're right, I will talk with Dave. I feel bad for upsetting him. I didn't think Dave and I were that close, but Chris informed me that Dave considers us close. He tells them about all the stuff that we do together, which is not a lot, because I didn't think he even cared to hang out with me, but apparently it means a lot to him. Every time I've taken him somewhere or got him food or watched a movie, he's told them. I think a large part is obviously Chris and Blake being away at university, while I live at home and still attend uni, so there's space for us to bond. But he really cares for me. I feel terrible about making him feel rejected, so I'll speak to him. I seriously was not trying to hurt any of them with my post, especially not Dave. My new coworker demands to be called Miss Potter. I've been with my company for 6 years now. We are very informal with each other and have a fairly laid-back culture. The company president is Dave. My boss is Lou. I tell employees who call me Mr. Smith, fake name, that my name is Dennis and that there's no need for formality. We recently hired a new employee. The fake name that I will give her for this post is Jenny Potter. In coming on board with us, Jenny signed all of her emails as Miss Potter. When she answers the phone, it's, "Good afternoon, this is Miss Potter speaking." When she calls me, it's, "Good morning, Dennis, this is Miss Potter." And my response is always, "Good morning, Jenny, how can I help you?" If I send an email to Jenny, the response is signed by Miss Potter, emphasis hers. She is 3 levels below me in a different line of report in terms of company hierarchy, so her supervisor's boss reports to someone on the same level as me, if that makes sense. It got back to me that she thinks I'm disrespectful for not calling her Miss Potter when I speak to her. When I speak to others about it, most state that they just ignore it. Don't use a name to address her or respond to her queries, and let her call herself whatever she wants to. My boss thinks it's idiotic and that she's not at any level within the company to demand that. When I told my wife, she replied that it's obviously a button for this woman, and I'm being a jerk by antagonizing her. My counterpoint to this is that nobody in the company gets addressed formally, and if I don't call my boss or his boss by anything but their first names, I'm not going to formally address another employee several layers down the hierarchy. You're the jerk. She's being very polite about how she wants to be addressed, and you're being a jerk about it. She wants to be called Miss, call her Miss. Your position doesn't excuse this behavior. In fact, it makes it worse. She's not being that polite by demanding she be addressed with an honorific when no one else is. She's demanding she be addressed with more respect than anyone else at the company. Asking someone to refer to you as Mr. or Mrs. when everyone is on a first-name basis is the same as asking someone to call you sir or ma'am. He's allowed to be uncomfortable with that, and it makes sense that him being her superior makes it even weirder. It would be like having to call someone who works for you ma'am, or like students referring to a teacher by their first name and the professor responding with, "Good to see you as well, Mr. Smith." You know who historically gets referred to by their first name and asked to respond formally? Servants, typically. So yeah, the reason his position is relevant is because she's asking him to verbally refer to her as his superior when he speaks to her, even though she's dramatically inferior to him at the company. Edit. Her reasonable recourse is to ask to be called by her last name. "Hey there, Potter, how's it going today?" Very common practice, very normal. No honorific or implied relationship. Very simple, and she's clearly already comfortable using the last name, so it would be unreasonable to say that Miss Potter is significantly different enough from just Potter to upset her. He gets to decide to be called by his first name or not. She gets to decide to be called by her first name or not. Just because he breaks the conventions of basic business etiquette does not mean that she has to, no matter their relative positions. You're the jerk. You're the jerk. It's about boundaries, not hierarchy. Maybe she likes to keep it formal so she can draw a line between private affairs and work-related stuff, or she simply isn't comfortable being called by her first name. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. Don't you have more important things to tend to other than gossiping about coworkers and being a blabbermouth? Honestly, you sound exhausting to be around. No jerks here. She's allowed to have her preference, and I suppose you should respect that, but at the same time, I find it a bit disrespectful on her part to insist on a more formal address for herself in a work environment where that is extremely far from the norm. It would be one thing if everyone used titles at your workplace and she wished to be called properly, referred to as doctor because she has a PhD, but you insisted on saying Miss or Mrs., but no one in your workplace uses these terms, so it's just weird. Not the jerk. This is why you always have to weed these people out during the hiring process. My husband is a hiring manager for a large company, so I get to see the ins and outs. He'll spend days going through years of a person's social media accounts. If he sees anything at all to give off the impression that they'll be problematic, he shreds their resume and puts them on a do not hire list. I can tell you firsthand that he'd shred about 99% of the resumes from people here on Reddit. You are all just about as loony as it gets. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the new employee? Please let us know. I'd start calling her Harry. Am I the jerk for not wanting to continue my daughter's gymnastics training? When my daughter was young, we introduced her to gymnastics. She was totally hooked and kept asking for more and more lessons. We encouraged her, thinking she would eventually lose interest. Now she's 12, training 20 hours a week, spending weekend after weekend competing at high-level competitions. Problem is, she's 5'7" already and still growing. She's starting to have ambition for D1 scholarships or even the Olympics. That makes me very worried. Being 5'7" basically destroys her chance of going to the Olympics. D1 gymnastics scholarships are already rare. The odds of her getting one with her height are even more rare. It makes me feel bad that our daughter is very, very dedicated. She's almost always the first one at the gym and the last one to leave. She watches replays of her routine on our drive to training, turns down social events because she needs to train, does extra conditioning at home. Yet, I cannot justify blowing thousands of dollars a year and hundreds of hours in time every year to gamble on something with so little chance of success. All the hours spent at her training, driving her to competition, is already causing our family life to suffer. She under-rotates her skills because of her height and gets injured more frequently than others. Her academics are suffering because of her gymnastics commitment. Her life is going in the wrong direction because of gymnastics. The Band-Aid is better ripped off earlier than later. My husband agrees. I broke the news to my daughter. Frankly, it broke my heart to tell her to give up on something that she's worked so hard for. I told her I know she's a hard worker. She would get much better rewards if she channels her hard work somewhere else, like in school or another sport. She plays tennis with her family only casually, yet she was able to win a few U12 tournaments locally. If that's not talent, I don't know what is. Needless to say, she did not take that well. She cried and cried and cried, locking herself in a room, refusing to eat, saying maybe if she doesn't eat, she will become shorter. I told her over and over that I love her and I just want what's best for her, but she wouldn't have any of it. I tried to reason with her, telling her chasing a dream is a privilege, not a right. No use. My husband has now softened, even though we used to have an agreement. Our family is now phoning us to try and persuade us to let her continue training, even offering support for training costs and pickup and drop-offs. If she has the right body to be an elite gymnast, or if she is tall like she is, but is not struggling because of her height, I would support her unconditionally. However, that's not the case. Sometimes I feel like giving in, but to think it through, I was the person who drove her to training and competition. I'm the breadwinner who paid for her training. It should be my right to call it off, especially as a parent. Help me out, Reddit. Am I in the wrong? You're the jerk. You're taking away her passion instead of trying to come up with a compromise that still allows her to train and participate in what she loves. I was a dancer and too tall for anything. You know what? I continued to dance into my late teen years. I was aware of my limitations, but dance was never taken from me. You're taking something away from your daughter without even discussing it with her or trying to work something out. I'm gonna say no jerks here. Ex-athlete here that peaked at a whopping 5'2" in a tall people sport. I completely see both sides. Constant overtraining is just going to lead to a lifetime of injuries. I'm 46 and need surgery on 3 joints, but I loved playing and no one could tell me to stop. So here I am, broken by age 40, in for a lifetime of pain. Maybe try diving. Same skills, not the same height limitations. Can you taper off? 20 hours a week, frequent injuries, no social life, and grades not as good as they could be are super valid reasons to want her to focus her energy in other places too. This right here. The people commenting, "You're the jerk," clearly have no idea how much time, effort, and sacrifice it takes to be a serious athlete. My younger sister was in the same boat, swam 6 hours a day and wanted to make it a career. However, she's 5'6", and even she understood that it wasn't going to happen once she stopped growing. Reality sucks, but it's just that, reality. You don't get to change it because you want something really badly. Not the jerk. All the "you're the jerk" people are totally unrealistic. You're spending thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours, and commenters are like, "But she loves it." Her grades and social life are suffering, and she's getting injured, and commenters are like, "But she loves gymnastics." That's irrelevant. Parents are supposed to step in when necessary. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. Parents need to be realistic with their kids. Reddit boy used to want to be a rapper. Imagine if his parents had just encouraged his delusions. Come on, Karen, can't you keep anything a secret? Take me to my job. I don't care if the car has no gas. This happened a few weeks ago. I've been with my boyfriend for almost a year. He's a sweet guy with a big heart who loves me a lot. The thing is, he has a narcissistic mom who thinks she can do no wrong and everything bad in her life is somehow my boyfriend's fault. The thing is that she is also very stupid and constantly forces my boyfriend to do things that go against a regular person's common sense that instantly backfires. My boyfriend, if he wanted to, could write a post in this sub every week, but he doesn't know how to write in English, so here I am. I was spending the weekend at his house like I usually do. His mom's health these last few months has been terrible because of a bug bite on her leg. She hasn't received instant medical care because she was more focused on her work than her well-being, and the bite ended up rotting a hole into the flesh. So she now has to be forced to take proper medical care. This woman is so incompetent that she's a danger to herself. Anyway, their car has been broken for many months, but my boyfriend finally managed to make it work again. I know nothing about cars, but it's a Ford Fiesta from I think 2010 or older. His mom can't drive, So as soon as the car was working again, started to use my boyfriend as her personal taxi, just as we expected. She wants him to drive her to work at 5 a.m. and sometimes also wants him to drive her back home, which is a pain because our workplace is far away in the middle of our city. But if he refuses, she throws a childish tantrum until he says okay. She literally could get away with anything by throwing tantrums, even for stupid things. Once she was angered because boyfriend forgot to clean a small corner after he left the entire house perfectly clean. Back to the story. Friday in the afternoon, he picked me up at my workplace and we got to his house. We took a highway when the car started to lose some power until it shut itself down. We ran out of gas. He was angry because of all the times that his mom had made him waste so much gas that week. Tried to turn it on, and after some trying, he did it. Every few hundred meters, the car would shut down again, and we had to turn it back on. We barely managed to get to the house, and we had to call someone to give us 2 liters of gasoline that I paid for in cash so we could arrive. His mom came back at 8 p.m., and we told her how we ran out of gas. The next morning, we were asleep when she aggressively knocks on the door at 5 a.m. to wake my boyfriend up. This is usual. After he got out of the room, she told him to drive her to work. I was buried in the bed and then heard the loud tantrum outside that my boyfriend told her that the car had no gas. She was screaming for about 10 to 15 minutes.
Yes, the car will make it. Son, I can't ask you for a favor without you being ungrateful. Why can't you take me to work? What an inconsiderate son I have. You want to make me walk with this leg? You will see that the car still has enough gas to get there.
My boyfriend got into the room, took the keys, shoes, jacket, and stormed out. I didn't get out of bed. He was back in like half an hour. He told me that after the car shut down the first time while going uphill, she went quiet. The car did shut down 3 more times and she said nothing, maybe realizing that no, the car won't make it. They only managed to get to a bus stop where she could take a bus directly to her work, left her there and came back. The thing is that this woman never learns from her mistakes because it's somehow always someone else's fault. But at least she might feel quietly ashamed this time. And don't worry, my boyfriend and I have an exit plan so he can cut contact with her. We both have had enough. Am I the jerk for not wanting my ex's son at my Christmas? Trying to be concise. I was with my ex for about 7 years, never married. Lived together the last 4. Broke up 3 years ago. She has a 21-year-old son, Shane, who is now going to college in a town that I have since moved to that his parents do not live in, about a 6-hour drive. We've moderately kept in touch since the breakup, mostly just when he reaches out to me. I would have preferred a clean break from both him and his mom, but have had a hard time totally shutting people out. I've not seen Shane in person since he was 18. Anyway, I got married last year and welcomed my first child 6 months ago. This will be my first Christmas with my wife and our child. Shane was going to go visit where his mom lives now for Christmas, but due to a pending storm, it's uncertain if he will be able to travel there. He called me last night and asked if he could spend Christmas with me. I was definitely caught off guard and told him while it's good to hear from him, it will be my first Christmas as a whole family, and I'd prefer to keep it to just us and maybe her parents who will stop by later. Shane was very upset, told me I was replacing him. I tried to reason with him that this is just what happens when adults move on in life. I said we could still keep in touch, but I wanted Christmas to be just with my family since it's our first one. He hung up and then later sent me a long text saying some super not nice things. My wife is glad I said no, but at the same time says she empathizes with how he feels and I should apologize but not necessarily have him over, but would support me if that's what I want. Am I the jerk for not wanting him to come over for Christmas? Edit. Shane's mother and I were never married. Shane's father is active in his life, he is just often out of town. I only had met Shane a few times until he moved in during his high school years. He was very active in sports and extracurriculars, so he wasn't actually home that much for us to spend time together. Them moving in was supposed to be temporary after his mom got laid off, and it just kinda dragged into them staying. His mother was very adamant that Shane had a father and she didn't want me to attempt to parent her kid. While he lived at my house, I was basically an adult roommate. We got along well, but it was never a father-son type relationship. Can't believe the people that are voting you're the jerk. OP, you are not the jerk. You and your ex broke up years ago. You have your little family now. Yeah, the baby might not remember their first Christmas, but you and your wife will. Happy holidays. Not the jerk. An unbelievable number of people commenting "you're the jerk" don't seem to have actually read the post. 1. OP did not take on a fatherly role. He was explicitly told by Shane's mom she didn't want that. 2. Shane's father was, and still is in his life, and regarded by him as his father. 3. They weren't married. Not that important, but people can't read. 4. Everyone crying that Shane has nowhere to go, will be left alone on Christmas, etc. OP states he could travel to spend Christmas with friends or family. 5. Lots are criticizing OP for letting the situation go on as long as it has, but then want him to double down and have him over for an awkward Christmas with a family he's no longer part of and make it even more difficult to separate properly? Shaking my head. Yikes, dude. He was your stepkid basically for 7 years. He's stranded for Christmas. Would it seriously hurt you if he came over for Christmas? I'm grossed out by this, not gonna lie. If virtually anyone I have a stable relationship of any kind with asked if they could come to my house for Christmas, I would say yes, because it's Christmas. You're the jerk. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know.
It's an awkward Christmas. My ex's son that I haven't seen in years came over.
Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard.
Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.